Chapter 4764. Didn't she know her son well? He wasn't cut out for that. Now that the two of them were able to move around, it was best to give Ichi some family property. Now that things were a lot more relaxed, every family could raise some birds, and they weren't too strict about selling them. It was better to save up family property than to let Ichi go to some imaginary university. Ichi was only in his early 20s. Although he was a bit of an idiot, she believed that in 2 years, he would be more mature and sensible. At least Ichi was filial to the two of them. Every time he went to town, he would bring back delicious food for them. He didn't miss a single one. Yao Wenwen looked at Mother He, speechless. Mother He was a burden, right? Everyone said that a loving mother spoiled her son. Now she understood. Don't just stand there. Finish eating and come work with me. Now that Ichi doesn't need you to watch over him, don't think about slacking off in the house, said Mother He. Yao Wenwen was furious. If Mother He wasn't Ichi's mother, she would have jumped up and started cursing. Are you deaf? Seeing that Yao Wenwen ignored her, Mother He asked again in a low voice. She had heard that Yao Wenwen was hardworking. Why did she feel that Yao Wenwen was pretending after marrying over? She had been married for a year, but she was always thinking about slacking off. She didn't want Yao Wenwen to continue like this. Got it. Yao Wenwen gritted her teeth. When she went to the fields later, she would think of a way to make Mother He not let her work. How could she not have a way to deal with Mother He? In any case, she had been reborn. After breakfast, Mother He saw that Yao Wenwen obediently followed behind her with a hoe. She was very satisfied. Yao Wenwen was so tired that she was full of anger the whole morning. However, she didn't cause any trouble in the morning, but she really pretended to be tired. She was very diligent in her work, which satisfied Mother He. Yao Wenwen wanted the villagers to see that she wasn't the kind of person to slack off. This would be beneficial for her next move. If anything happened to her, it would be because Mother He was too harsh on her and treated her badly. In the afternoon, everyone went to rest and drink some water to cool off. Yao Wenwen's performance today was remarkable, which made many people have a good impression of her, especially since she didn't slack off at all, so someone asked her to come along. Yao Wenwen shook her head. No, you guys go ahead. I've been helping Ichi with his revision and haven't gone to bed. My mother-in-law is already dissatisfied. If I slack off and rest, she will be even more dissatisfied. Seeing the other party's pitiful gaze, Yao Wenwen was secretly delighted. It wasn't as if the He couple had doted on their son for a long time, so her excuse was easily believed by others. Therefore, Yao Wenwen worked there alone. Yao Wenwen was indeed a little tired, but her physical fitness was not bad. Even if she was tired, it was not unbearable. At this moment, she was a little annoyed with her own physical fitness. If she had a body like Tang Guo's, she would have fainted long ago. She waited until everyone was done resting and walked over. Then, her eyes rolled back and she fainted in the field. Oh no, old He's wife fainted. It was unknown who shouted, but many people followed and ran over. What happened? She's probably too tired. I haven't seen her rest at all today. How can this little wife have a good life in the He family? The He couple dotes on their sons so much. After marrying into the family, they probably do all the work. Chapter 4765. I heard that before the sun rises, they would wake him up to cook. Old He is still the same as before, sleeping until late in the morning. I bumped into him this morning. He probably went to town to play again. For a moment, the surrounding people were all talking at once about the He family. This was Yao Wenwen's plan. She didn't cook every day for nothing. Every day, When she went to get water, she would chat with the aunties in the village. She would exaggerate how much she had cooked to let everyone know that she wasn't the type to suffer losses. Mother he also came over. When she saw Yao Wenwen being carried to a shady place, her eyelids twitched. She was also shocked. Was Yao Wenwen's body really that weak? Or was there something else? Mother he subconsciously looked at Yao Wenwen's stomach. If she was pregnant, she really couldn't let Yao Wenwen get off the bed. After all, she was pregnant with her little grandchild. What's wrong here? A pleasant voice came from outside the crowd. It wasn't loud, but everyone heard it clearly. They all looked back. When they saw who it was, they hurriedly made way. Teacher Tang, are you done with school? Tang Gua nodded. At this time, the village only had 2 classes in the afternoon. School usually ended early. The village was poor. There weren't many classes and textbooks. Recently, she had been copying textbooks so that everyone in the class could have a copy. What's wrong here? Old He's wife fainted from working. She's probably too tired, someone said. Tang Gua had already walked in front of Yao Wenwen. She looked at Yao Wenwen who was lying there. Because there were many people around, she accidentally stepped on Yao Wenwen's finger. Suddenly, the sound of a pig being slaughtered attracted everyone's attention. Seeing Yao Wenwen jump up in pain and cover her finger, everyone's expression was strange. Tang Gua revealed an apologetic look. Sorry, it's a little uneven here. I didn't see. Yao Wenwen, I heard that you fainted. Are you okay? I have some sugar here. Do you want some? Tang Gua was indeed carrying sugar in her hand. She looked as innocent as possible. Yao Wenwen's eyes were about to spit fire. Tang Gua. Of all times, he had to come at this time. She was no longer her sister-in-law, yet she still dared to trick her. Detestable, detestable, now all her plans were ruined. The villagers weren't fools. Seeing Yao Wenwen's appearance, they understood why she fainted. It turned out that this was not because he was tired, but because he wanted to slack off. Mother He's eyes were also wide open. For a moment, she didn't react until she heard people talking. Old He's wife is not simple. I was almost fooled by her. I sympathized with her just now, but now, haha. I felt that something was wrong before. When she fainted, her face was rosy. I couldn't see anything wrong with her at all. Isn't this very spirited? When Mother He heard this, she felt like her IQ had been insulted. She pulled out a willow branch and threw it at Yao Wenwen. Who told you to pretend to be sick? Who told you to be lazy? Yao Wenwen, you're really amazing. Yao Wenwen was hit without warning. She glared at Tang Gua viciously and ran away. What's going on? Tang Gua asked, pretending to be innocent. Chapter 4766. The system wiped its sweat. What was Little White Lotus? Look at its host, she was calling him Old White Lotus. It's nothing. Old He's wife is pretending to be sick to be lazy. It's all thanks to Teacher Tang's carelessness. Otherwise, so many of us would have been fooled. The villagers laughed out loud. Teacher Tang, go back quickly. It's still very dark. Oh right, Teacher Tang, you have to be careful. Yao Wenwen looked at you fiercely just now. Most of these people were very friendly to Tang Gua because not all of their children could go to the village to study. But many of the children still had a thirst for knowledge. They at least wanted to know how to write their names. Whenever Tang Gua was stopped by these children, she would take the time to teach them on the ground. In Tang Gua's eyes, this was also part of her job to eliminate illiteracy. Now that there were fewer classes, she had free time. Maybe when the land was contracted and every family was rich, these children could also go to school. She planned to build a good relationship with the nearby villages. Just this alone was enough to make Yao Wenwen lose her mind. Tang Guo said goodbye to everyone and went home. The system was still broadcasting the scene of Yao Wenwen being chased around the village by Mother He. Yao Wenwen probably hated her to the core after what happened today. Didn't Yao Wenwen say that she suffered a lot in the family? She wondered how she felt about her days in the He family. Tang Guo carried the rock candy and went home happily. The rock candy was sent to her by an educated youth whom she had helped in the past. When she got home, she told Chen Yufan and Tang Shi about Yao Wenwen. This Yao Wenwen. Luckily, when Aunt Zhang mentioned Yao Wenwen, I wasn't moved. Chen Yufan said, I heard that Yao Wenwen was counting on He Qi to be outstanding every day so that he could study. It's not that she looked down on He Qi, but that kid is a loafer. It's okay to let him play with money, but to let him study is simply asking for his life. Tang Shi laughed and said, actually, there's one thing you don't know. This Yao Wenwen looked down on Big Brother back then. My boss doesn't need her to look up to him. Chen Yufan hurriedly said, it's a little scary to be looked up to by her. Yao Wenwen's reputation had long been ruined in the village. Back then, she and He Qi had done some dirty things in some secret places in the village. Not many people in the village didn't know about it. After dinner, Tang Guo sat beside Tang Shi. Brother Tingrui, time to study. Little sister, Big Brother has a headache today. Tang Shi covered his head with a pained expression. Tang Guo's cold voice came to his ears. I deliberately stepped on Yao Wenwen. Second brother, do you know that? Tang Shi, it cracked open. Tang Shi opened the textbook obediently. Tang Guo sat in front of him and began to teach with her voice. Tang Shi obviously didn't want to study, but when he heard Tang Guo's voice, he couldn't help but be drawn in. When it was over, he came back to his senses. He patted his chest. He was really strange recently. He could actually remember the knowledge that little sister taught. Could it be that he was enlightened? Find some time to do your homework. Also, practice writing a piece every day. I'll check tomorrow. In his memory, Tang Shi was mocked and looked down on many times because he was uncultured. Someone deliberately messed with him and secretly changed his manuscript at the last minute. Fortunately, he had a good memory and memorized the manuscript the day before. Otherwise, he would definitely be embarrassed. Chapter 4767. There was also that trashy primary school student signature, which was also mocked for a long time. Tang Shi also suffered a lot from some documents. Later, he would take the original owner with him wherever he went, which made things a little better. Therefore, it was very important to help her second brother eliminate his illiteracy. Not only did she have to eliminate his illiteracy, but she also had to write some business management books and various cases for Tang Shi to read, especially the pitfalls in the business field. With Tang Shi's brain, he would take this path sooner or later. When Tang Shi was practicing his calligraphy, he felt a cold wind blowing around him as if he was surrounded by something strange. He didn't know that Tang Guo had already planned his curriculum for the next 10 years. Not only did he have to learn the basics, business management, but he also had to learn some English to avoid being caught in the dark. Under Tang Guo's training, Tang Shi's handwriting became much better. It could be said that in the family Tang, he listened to his sister Tang Guo's words the most. As for Yao Wenwen, she was caught by Mother He and taught a lesson. The next day, she was dragged to the field. He Qi still went to the town to play. This made Yao Wenwen anxious like an ant on a hot pan. For a while, she didn't know what to do. A few years later, Tang Yu and Jiang Qian graduated from college. The two of them stayed in the original city to develop their business. The family Tang was very supportive. Tang Yu and his wife actually had their own plans. It wasn't that they didn't want to go back. With their current ability, they would be restricted no matter what they did back there. Because at this time, they started to support private enterprises. After the two of them saved up a sum of money, they started to start their own business. At home, the land contract system gradually came down. Every family's life was much better. Chen Yufin's clothing business was doing well. Under the advice of Tang Guo and Tang Shi, she opened a small shop in the town. Tang Guo found a lot of books about fashion design for Chen Yufin. In addition, she would occasionally draw some for Chen Yufin. Chen Yufin was really talented in this aspect. It didn't take long for her to learn and draw inferences about other things. So far, the small shop had expanded and she had asked for help. Jiang Qian knew about the situation here and told Chen Yufin to register the trademark, as well as other similar trademarks. After consulting with Tang Guo, Chen Yufin decisively registered the trademark. The English characters of the trademark were Yu. As the business in Chen Yufin's store got better and better, no matter how big the store was, it couldn't satisfy these wealthy customers. Chen Yufin knew that Jiang Qian knew a lot, so she asked her for more information. At that time, Jiang Qian gave her a suggestion to set up a factory. Then, she could help Chen Yufin get a batch of machines back. When the time came, she could also let the villagers work in the factory, which could boost the economy of her hometown. When Chen Yufin heard that, she felt that she didn't dare to say that she didn't have that much money. Jiang Qian said, "Mom, you can get a loan. The country is very supportive of this. Trust me, go ahead and get a loan. If the local government knows about your idea, they will support you to set up a factory." Chen Yufin was a little tempted, so she asked Tang Guo and Tang Shi to take her to ask. In the end, after asking, it was true. Under the instigation of Tang Guo and Tang Shi, Chen Yufin set up the clothing factory in a hurry. When Chen Yufin was preparing to set up the clothing factory, Tang Shi also didn't behave. He had his eyes on a few yan pond and reservoirs in the nearby villages. "Little sister, do you think it's reliable for me to contract a fish pond to raise fish and prawns?" Tang Guo said, "It's reliable." "Really?" Tang Shi was a little happy. "Look, big brother and sister-in-law are busy with their own businesses, and little sister is also doing the great work of eliminating illiteracy. Our mother is going to be Director Chen soon. In the future, people will talk about how the second family is the most useless." Chapter 4768. Tang Guo giggled. "Second brother, go ahead. I believe you will succeed. Actually, I went to the city recently. The demand for fish and prawns is increasing. It should not be a loss." Tang Guo encouraged him. "Second brother, I will find you some books on fish and prawns. What do you think?" "Yes, little sister. Whether I can succeed or not depends on you." When Tang Shi received a dozen books, he flipped through the knowledge points in them and finally felt that studying was a little useful. Not only did Tang Shi read the books, but he also invited some local people who were good at fish and prawns to help. When they heard that Tang Shi wanted to take a loan to lease the fish pond, these people thought that he was crazy. When Tang Shi invited them to join, only 2 of them agreed. They did not invest too much. Tang Shi was very bold. Once the team was formed, he went to handle the loan procedures. A few months later, Chen Yufin's factory was set up. All the workers were local. Tang Guo gave Chen Yufin a lot of advice from the beginning so that she would not take many detours. Seeing that the factory was finally on the right track, Tang Guo wiped the sweat on her head. "It is not easy to be a salted fish. System, there is still your second brother. Big brother is the luckiest. He has the female lead to take care of him." Tang Guo said enviously. Fortunately, there was Jiang Qian. Otherwise, there would be no progress on the machines in Chen Yufan's factory. When Tang Shi's fish pond was set up, Tang Guo was really relieved. Unknowingly, she had been busy for a few years for her future salted fish life. Now that there were more students coming to school, there was finally progress on the teachers that the school applied to transfer over. Principal, how many teachers are transferred over? Tang Guo asked expectantly. When the teachers come over, should we assign them to different subjects? I don't know what the new teachers are good at. I hope they can all be good at it. The principal smiled bitterly. One came. Although their place was developing, it was very civilized in the country. At this time, the teachers with some ability were willing to stay in the city. Even if they were not good, they would be in the town or county. Who would be willing to come to the village? Only one. Yeah, there's only one, and he's from another city. Tang Guo instantly lost all hope. Forget it. One is fine. At least we can share some of the burden. I'm sorry for holding you up. Originally. The principal's voice was somewhat bitter. Tang Guo's grades were better than Jiang Qian's. What's the point of saying that? I did it of my own free will. I wasn't forced by anyone. Besides, our hometown is so good. Over the years, many students have passed the exam, right? The principal said sadly, but not many came back. As the saying goes, water flows downwards, and people walk upwards. The principal felt a little depressed. Don't be sad. What will come will come. Our place won't be bad. Tang Guo stood up. I'm going to pick up the new teacher. Principal and the other teachers, you don't have to go. You're all old, so stay in school. The teachers in the school were all over 65 years old. Tang Guo went home, took her money and bag, and then went to the town to take a bus to the city. There were only trains in the city. The school was afraid that the new teacher could not be found. She was the only young teacher, so she naturally went to pick up the new teacher. She came to the train station 2 hours early and held a sign with the new teacher's name on it. The new teacher's name was Jinheng. It was said that he graduated from a famous university and was very outstanding. She did not know why he chose to come to her village. Perhaps he was a great person with ideals and thoughts. Chapter 4769. At the exit of the train station, Tang Guo had been waiting outside for an hour. If there was a stool, she could have fallen asleep while waiting. However, it was not convenient at this time. Without an effective communication method, she could only wait outside. Otherwise, it would be easy to lose the person. Especially this kind of person, whom she had never met before. Excuse me, are you the teacher of Shangnan Village Primary School? A young voice sounded in Tang Guo's ears. Tang Guo turned her head to look. It was a young man of about 25 years old. The young man dressed more fashionably than many people she had seen before. He even wore an expensive watch on his wrist. Unlike many people at the train station who carried denim bags and snakeskin bags, he was pulling a suitcase. The style of the suitcase was very old-fashioned in Tang Guo's eyes. However, in this era, it was definitely at the forefront of the era. The workmanship of the suitcase was definitely of high quality. Yes, you are teacher Jinheng, right? After coming back to her senses, Tang Guo looked at Jinheng from head to toe and revealed a friendly smile. I am Shangnan Village Primary School's teacher, Tang Guo. Hello, teacher Tang Guo. Jinheng reached out his hand to Tang Guo. The two of them shook hands gently, which was considered as an introduction. Teacher Jin, you must have had a hard journey. Tang Guo said politely. Let me help you with your suitcase. Jinheng declined. No need, I'll carry it myself. It's a bit heavy. His eyes were full of smiles, and his whole person seemed very kind. When he came, he thought that Shangnan Village Primary School's teachers would be slightly older. Their skin would inevitably be damaged by the wind and sun. They would be yellow, red, dry, and even have a few wrinkles on their forehead and the corners of their eyes. Their hands would also be rough because of doing farm work. However, they were dressed plainly, their eyes were bright, and their smile was very simple. In his mind, he had already formed the idea that the female teacher who came to pick him up must be a very simple old lady. He really didn't expect this teacher to be younger than him, wearing fashionable clothes and a pair of leather shoes. She was also good-looking. Her skin was fair and clear, even fairer than the skin of the female students he had seen before. Not only was she fair and clear, but she was also very delicate, as if she had never been exposed to the elements. When he shook the other party's hand just now, it was not what he expected. It was still very delicate and there were no calluses on the palm. It did not seem like it had done any rough work. Mr. Tang, did you also take the initiative to become a teacher at Shangnan Village Primary School? Jin Heng took the initiative to start a conversation. In his heart, he was certain that Tang Guo was not a local. She must have come from a big city, like him, to teach the village children. At that moment, Jin Heng was a little excited. Many people thought that he was crazy, but it turned out that there were people who had the same idea as him. Therefore, he really wanted to talk more with Tang Guo. Yes, Tang Guo replied. She also felt that Jin Heng seemed to be a little excited. She was not surprised by this. When the batch of educated youths first came to the countryside, they were also very excited to jump off the ox cart. After a few more days, they could not smile. However, Jin Heng was a teacher. Now that the school's conditions were much better, the nearby villages would slowly become richer. After all, there was her mother's clothing factory and her second brother's fish pond. They could solve most of the villagers' work in the nearby villages. Now, anyone in the Tang family had a lot of weight. Chapter 4770. Moreover, the people of this era were more simple and honest than the people of the future. They knew that they could earn money by working, so they worked hard and did their best to do it. The Tang school was now their source of income. After receiving benefits, they would take the initiative to protect such an existence. If someone had bad intentions, there was no need for the Tang school to step in. Someone else would take the initiative to solve the problem. Where is Teacher Tang originally from? Why did you choose to teach in a remote village primary school? Jin Heng's eyes lit up because he had been told too many times by his classmates that he was stupid. Now that he had found someone who had made the same choice as him, he wanted to find out the reason. Tang Guo was stunned for a moment, but she quickly understood that Jin Heng had misunderstood something. Teacher Jin might have misunderstood. Seeing Jin Heng's confused look, Tang Guo said, I am from Shanghe village. Isn't it normal for me to go to the village to teach? This time, Jin Heng was completely stunned. This young teacher Tang was from the village. What kind of family could raise such a person? Could it be that the village was different from the poor village he had imagined? Teacher Jin seems to have a lot of doubts. You can ask me if you want to know. Jin Heng came back to his senses and showed an apologetic smile. It's because Teacher Tang is so beautiful that I mistakenly thought that you were a girl from the city. I see. My mother and two brothers love me and never let me work. My life is indeed many times better than the other girls in the village. Hearing this, Jin Heng was stunned again. This was because he had read a lot of information about the villages before. There were many examples of boys over girls in those places. He did not expect this young teacher Tang to be a different example. Jean Heng suddenly smiled in relief. There must be different kinds of people, and the preference for boys over girls was not all. He had relied too much on the data from the investigation. How many students are there in the school at the moment? Jean Heng asked again. Tanghua, there are more than 300 people. Like an ordinary primary school, they are divided into 6 classes. Currently, there are a total of 5 formal teachers in the school, including the principal. There are too few teachers. When Jean Heng heard this, he was a little surprised. Can 5 teachers handle it? Currently, the school is mainly focusing on Chinese and mathematics. We don't have enough teachers to offer other courses. Every class couldn't be full all the time. When there were no classes, they would let the students do their homework and revise by themselves. The teachers also wanted to teach more, but they couldn't spare the time. The conditions of the village were too poor. The school was small and shabby, and the tables and chairs were also very old. In the past 2 years, our school has been developing well. The principal has applied for a new set of desks, which the children like very much. Jean Heng sighed, this condition is too difficult. Teacher Jean, are you disappointed with the conditions here and afraid? Jean Heng quickly shook his head. No, I'm not afraid. Before I came here, I did some research on the village primary schools, so I know some things. But he didn't expect it to be so difficult. Since I chose to come here, I was naturally mentally prepared. The children here need me very much. Previously, I guessed that teacher Jean graduated from a famous university. If you can come to a village primary school, you should be a person with dreams. Jean Heng was embarrassed by the praise and asked about other conditions in the school. Just like that, the two of them chatted all the way to the train station and got on the train. After an hour, they arrived at the county town. When they arrived at the county town, they had to take another train to the town. Chapter 4771. Jean Heng looked at the remote and dilapidated place. It was just as he had expected. No wonder not many people were willing to come here. At this time, everyone was willing to stay in the city to develop. Not many people who had completed their studies were willing to come to such a place. Because it might take 3 to 5 years, 10 years, or even decades to come. Many opportunities would be lost. Teacher Jean, this place is very backward, Tanghua said. Jean Heng nodded. It will change in the future. As long as these children are willing to learn more, there will always be 1 or 2 who are willing to change this place. Although this place was backward, it was not a remote mountain. In Jean Heng's opinion, if someone had the ability to change, there were still many opportunities. Tanghua smiled when she heard this. It's already changing. Teacher Jean, wait a moment. I'll call someone and get an ox cart to take us in. It will still take half an hour to walk from here. It's not convenient to carry luggage. Jean Heng was still thinking about what Tanghua meant by, it's already changing. After a while, Tanghua led an ox cart over. The driver of the ox cart was an old man. He was dressed very plainly and old. When he smiled, his face was full of wrinkles. This must be the new teacher. The old man was very polite. He was also from a few villages nearby. In the morning, he was selling some poultry. Tanghua had agreed to pick them up, so he waited here. New teacher, sit tight. Jean Heng saw how Tanghua sat in the ox cart and imitated her. As soon as he sat, he felt a cold feeling. However, Jean Heng did not say anything. He had to get used to this. After a while, this place will be open to traffic, Tanghua said. When the road is built, it will be more convenient to enter and leave the village. Although there were roads now, they were not very good and wide. All day long, there were only carts for transporting goods, not for the convenience of the villagers. Jin Heng was stunned again. What kind of village did he come to? They had already started to build roads. These 2 days are the weekend. I'll bring teacher Jin to participate in our village. Jin Heng nodded. Okay. As for teacher Jin's accommodation, you can stay at my house for now. This was discussed at the beginning. The principal felt that it would be better for young people to communicate with each other. Plus, second brother Tang Guo was there, so it was not a big deal. In the past, when educated youths went to the countryside, there were also educated youths who needed to stay in the villagers' houses. No one thought anything of it. Originally, Tang Guo didn't have any special feelings about this arrangement. Now, he felt that this arrangement was perfect. Jin Heng had no objections to this arrangement. Through the conversations they had on the way, Jin Heng was looking forward to his future days as a village teacher. Living in Tang Guo's house undoubtedly made him feel more familiar with the unfamiliar environment. He was less nervous and uneasy. When the village gets better in the future, they will probably build a school and a teacher's dormitory. But at that time, I wonder if teacher Jin will still be here. Jin Heng, I'll probably stay here forever. Jin Heng's words surprised Tang Guo. Teacher Jin has a bright future. Why did you choose to stay here? In Tang Guo's opinion, even if you came to teach out of the kindness of your heart, 3 to 5 years was already good enough. Some kind-hearted teachers might even spend 10 years. At this time was quite valuable. Because if you were not careful, you would miss many opportunities. I don't have a family, Jin Heng's somewhat depressed voice sounded in her ear. So I want to find something meaningful to do. Chapter 4772. The atmosphere became cold. Tang Guo didn't ask why. In that case, teacher Jin, you can stay here. This place will become better and better. Tang Guo began to introduce the village's current development. A garment factory has been built in the village, and it's already on the right track. Currently, all the clothes will be sold all over the country. Many merchants would come here for a second time and a third time because the quality of the clothes here are good and the designs are new. When Jin Heng heard this, all the previous mysteries were solved. No wonder Tang Guo said that this place was changing. In addition, there are people who have contracted the fish pond here. Currently, they've received the first batch. The market is slowly opening up. Many people already know that the supply can't meet the demand. Jin Heng's previous depression was swept away. He just randomly chose a village. How could he choose the one with the greatest potential? Didn't he plan to choose the poorest village to eradicate the illiteracy of the children here and change their fate? When it's better, I'll ask the owner of the fish pond and the factory director to donate money to build the school. Jin Heng was surprised again. This young teacher's tone was not small. Did he just ask them to donate money? The old man at the side laughed when he heard that. Teacher Tang, Director Chen and the pond master have always listened to you. Now that you've mentioned this, it's definitely a done deal. The children in the village are so lucky to have a teacher like you. Because of the better conditions, every family's children were sent to school. Coupled with the publicity of education, if they didn't send their children to school when they reached the age limit, the teachers would have to visit them. Every family's life was better, and the school fees were not expensive, so they sent their children to school. Especially Tang Yu and his wife, who started their own business after graduating from university. Now that their business was thriving, the villagers saw the hope of studying. The old man seemed to know that Jin Heng was dumbfounded, so he said, Factory Director Chin is Teacher Tang's mother. The owner of the fish pond is Teacher Tang's second brother. This family Tang is amazing. They're all promising. Family Tang's eldest brother and his wife are also doing well outside. I heard that the machines in the factory were all brought by them. I heard that many foreign customers were also introduced by them. This is incredible, truly incredible. The shock in Jean Heng's heart could not be calmed down for a long time. So that was the case. It was as if he could see a prosperous scene in the future. He didn't expect that in this small village, all the talents came from the same family. Hearing that Tang Yu and Jiang Qian were both top students, Jean Heng couldn't be shocked. Jean Heng also heard from the old man that Tang Gua had voluntarily given up the college entrance examination because she couldn't bear to part with these children. Otherwise, with her grades, she would have definitely done better than her sister-in-law. When the ox cart entered the village, they met many people along the way. They all warmly greeted Tang Gua. Knowing that Jean Heng was a new teacher, they also greeted him in a friendly manner. At this time, people had a heartfelt respect for their teachers. Ah, Chi, wait a minute. Are you going to play in the town again? Can you listen to me for a bit? A female voice came from afar. Tang Gua immediately recognized the owner of the voice. If it wasn't Yao Wenwen, who else could it be? In the past few years, Yao Wenwen had been tormenting He Chi a lot. Every day, she wouldn't give up and wanted him to take the college entrance examination. Later, the He family made a fuss for a while, so Yao Wenwen stopped talking about the college entrance examination. She believed that even if he didn't take the college entrance examination, He Chi would definitely develop in the future. She just wanted to wait. When Chen Yufan went to the town to open a shop, Yao Wenwen also had an idea. Should she also open a shop? She knew what was popular and could go and get the goods. Then she really convinced Mother He to give her a sum of money and let her get the goods. After getting the goods, Yao Wenwen opened the shop in a hurry. But her business wasn't as good as she imagined. The people in the nearby villages were willing to buy from Chen Yufan's shop. In Chen Yufan's shop, not only could they buy what they liked, but they could also change it if it wasn't suitable. Chen Yufan's skillful hands were well known around the area. The goods that Yao Wenwen brought back were not so comfortable. Chapter 4773. The workmanship wasn't as good as Chen Yufan's, and the style didn't seem to be new. Chen Yufan might as well make it herself. But Yao Wenwen refused to admit defeat. She was reborn. How could she lose to an old woman? She didn't give up and kept struggling. After struggling for a while, the shop finally made a little profit. Yao Wenwen saw hope. But she didn't expect Chen Yufan to open a factory. When Yao Wenwen found out, she was shocked. What was going on? Had she changed too much? Even if she didn't want to see the family prosper, Yao Wenwen couldn't stop it. Chen Yufan's shop wasn't closed either. It was the shop that sold the new designs every time the factory released new designs. And the He family's clothing shop was now in the hands of the He sisters. Mother He was in charge. She went directly to Chen Yufan's factory to get the goods. They were from the same village, so they naturally had to take care of each other. When Yao Wenwen found out, she had a heart attack and never went to the shop again. Moreover, the shop was controlled by the He sisters. She couldn't interfere. Later, when she found out about the profits, she regretted it. But there was nothing she could do. It had been a few years. Yao Wenwen had given birth to a child, but He Chi still hadn't matured. Yao Wenwen couldn't believe it when she heard that Tang Yu and his wife had made a fortune. She felt terrible when she saw Chen Yufan's factory prospering. What made her even more miserable was that the illiterate second brother had taken over the fish pond. The income this year was huge. She panicked. Then she thought of a good idea. Let He Chi open a clothing factory. At this time, there weren't many clothing factories. The market hadn't reached saturation yet. Not to mention eating meat, drinking soup was definitely enough. But He Chi didn't want to. His life was so comfortable now. Ever since he married Yao Wenwen, he had been restless all day. He wanted to go to the town for a stroll. When Yao Wenwen found out, she quickly chased after him. Thus, Tang Guo was the one who saw this scene. He ran very fast, and Yao Wenwen was also chasing after him. She was also shouting loudly, like a madman. He covered his ears. He felt that Yao Wenwen was so annoying. This woman was affecting his life too much. Was his life not good now? He didn't lack money. He, come back here. Yao Wenwen could no longer speak in a gentle tone. He could not become the richest man in the province if he behaved like this. Suddenly, Yao Wenwen felt someone was looking at her. She looked over and saw Tang Guo sitting on the bullock cart. Looking at Tang Guo's fair and clean face and wearing the latest clothes from the factory, Yao Wenwen almost spits out blood. Tang Guo had seen her most embarrassing moment. Yao Wenwen, where are you going? Tang Guo asked. Yao Wenwen gritted her teeth, but she didn't want to lose face. I'm not going anywhere. She clenched her fists tightly. He was too infuriating. He was the richest man in the province. When would he be enlightened? Why did he still look like this after so many years of marriage? By the way, Yao Wenwen, your son is almost 5 years old, right? The school is planning to open a kindergarten class. Remember to ask your son to come to school. It's good for your future if you go to kindergarten to lay the foundation. The school had found 2 teachers for the kindergarten class, and both of them were women who were slightly more cultured. In the current situation, they could only find 2 middle school teachers, which was enough to teach the kindergarten class. As for the teaching materials, Tang Guo had already written them. When the time came, they could be taught after some training. At this time, this was the only way. As long as the teachers were patient enough to teach the children simple addition and subtraction, multipliers, words, and develop some simple interests and hobbies, it would be enough. Yao Wenwen's heart ached. She nodded. She had to agree. In the He family, she didn't make the decisions. Now, as long as it was something the Tang family said, her parents-in-law would believe it. When the time came, Tang Guo would publicize it. The 2 of them would definitely take the money and bring the child to school. She couldn't stop them. She didn't like her child. Instead, she felt that it was a burden. After watching Tang Guo leave, Yao Wenwen gritted her teeth. When Tang Guo mentioned the child, she thought of her age. When she thought of her age, she thought of her previous life. In her previous life, He had already made some achievements at this time. Everyone in the village often heard that He had opened a company and made a fortune. Chapter 47-74. When Tang Guo brought Jin Hing home, there was no one at home. Chen Yufan and Tang Shi were both busy now. I'll take you to your room first, and then I'll take you to the factory cafeteria to eat. Now that Tang Guo was at home, she ate at the factory. Until now, her family did not want her to cook, and she did not like to cook. Jin Heng looked at the beautiful little courtyard in front of him. He did not expect that there would be so many flowers and plants in this small courtyard. In the past few years, after their life had improved, the Tang family had renovated the house. For the time being, they had no intention of building a new building. The family liked this kind of spacious courtyard, so it was like this now. These flowers and plants were all made by Tang Guo. Sometimes, she would even bring her students back to admire the flowers and plants. Most of the people in the nearby villages had renovated their houses. Some of the more prosperous ones had directly demolished their houses and rebuilt them. Jin Heng felt that this place was too different from what he had imagined. After entering the village, the people he met were not the kind of people he had imagined. Everyone might be wearing patched clothes. If Tang Guo knew about this, she would definitely tell Jin Heng that the people in the nearby villages might be wearing old clothes, but it was basically impossible for them to wear patched clothes. The clothes that had been eliminated from the factory were enough for them to wear. Let's go, Teacher Jin. After Tang Guo arranged a room for Jin Heng, she asked him to go in the direction of the factory. Jin Heng came back to his senses and followed beside Tang Guo. On the way, Tang Guo seriously introduced the situation of the village in recent years to Jin Heng. Jin Heng listened attentively, and the more he listened, the more amazed he became. He wondered if some of his classmates who wanted to teach in such a village with such potential would be willing to come. After eating with Jin Heng in the cafeteria, Tang Guo took him to visit the factory. Whenever someone saw her, they would greet her, and she would introduce them to her. Jin Heng was the school's new teacher. The villagers had respect for teachers from the bottom of their hearts. Even the sharpest and most unkind people would become respectful upon hearing that they were the teachers of the village. This was the first time Jin Heng had been treated with such an attitude. From the beginning, he had already planned out what he would do. There might be many parents in the village who did not want their children to go to school. The current situation was that he only needed to focus on teaching in school. He didn't need to worry about anything else. He knew that all these changes were probably due to the family Tang. He also noticed that the people coming and going looked at Tang Guo differently. That kind of heartfelt gratitude could not be faked. Teacher Jin, I'll bring you to the school tomorrow to familiarize you with the environment. You'll officially interact with the students the day after tomorrow. Jin Heng replied, okay. By the way, Miss Jin, what subjects are you good at? Tang Guo asked. The school's Chinese and mathematics subjects were not a problem. A few of the older teachers were good at calligraphy and would occasionally teach the students calligraphy lessons. However, as they grew older, they would have to wait until there were younger teachers to replace them. It would be the time for them to retire. Tang Guo hoped that there would be more young teachers. Unfortunately, those who had the ability to come were willing to go to good schools and big cities to develop their careers. As for the remaining teachers, they were not up to the task. There was still a big difference between teaching in primary school and kindergarten. I should be able to teach all of them. Jin Heng thought about what he was good at, and the knowledge he had accumulated was more than enough to teach primary school students. Chapter 4775. Tang Guo's eyes lit up. Art? Is that okay? Jin Heng nodded. Sure. Sketches, oil paintings, watercolors, and Chinese paintings are all okay. So versatile. Although Tang Guo knew how to do these, she had no source for them. Her family knew her too well, so she couldn't bring them out. Besides, there was also Ya Wenwen, the reincarnated person. Her behavior was too abnormal and could easily cause trouble. Then I'll suggest to the principal to add art classes. Teacher Jin, you don't have any objections, right? Jin Heng, Teacher Tang, you can arrange it. Teacher Jin, do you know music? Tang Guo asked again. Jin Heng, yes. I know a little about all kinds of instruments. You should know how to play the piano, right? The principal said that he would apply for a piano for the school. It might be a second-hand one. But this is already very good for the school. Jin Heng nodded. Piano is not a problem. Then each class will have one art class and one music class a week. Tang Guo felt that it was a waste for a top student like Jin Heng to teach these interest classes. Teacher Jin is a top student from a famous school. It's a waste for him to teach these. Just these two subjects alone add up to 12 classes a week. At this moment, Tang Guo wished she could break Jin Heng into more than 10 parts. Each part was responsible for one subject. Unfortunately, there was only one Jinheng. Jinheng seemed to have seen through Tanggua's thoughts and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Teacher Tang, I have a suggestion. Jinheng saw Tanggua looking at him and continued, I'll teach art and music classes twice a week. Isn't there about 300 students in the school? We can set up the art and music classes in a bigger space. We can set up the art class in the field. The 300 students will be divided into 2 large classes. That means one class will have more than 100 students. The same goes for music classes. An empty space is not suitable for music classes, but we can choose 2 adjacent classrooms. If it's convenient, we can connect the classrooms. If it's not convenient, I can teach students at the door of the 2 classrooms. This way, he could save a lot of time. However, the students' timetable will need to be rearranged. This way, there will be fewer classes and I can teach other subjects. Tanggua thought it was a good idea. It's a good idea, but Teacher Jin's burden is a little heavy. It doesn't matter. Before I came, which teacher in the school didn't teach for half a day or a day? Jinheng didn't care about this. He wanted to see how this place would develop with his own eyes. Okay, I'll talk to the principal about this. Can Teacher Jin take charge of the children's English? Of course, Tanggua knew how to do it. Unfortunately, she couldn't take it out. However, she already had other ideas. Wasn't the current Jinheng a precious treasure? She would learn from Jinheng. When the time came and she learned everything that Jinheng knew, wouldn't she have a source of knowledge? Jinheng was still thinking that when he went back later, he would start preparing lessons and writing lesson plans. He would mainly focus on art, music, and English. However, he didn't know that Tanggua, who was standing beside him, was already planning to empty his mind of knowledge. When the 2 of them left the factory, it happened to be the time for the shift change. Outside, many villagers came in one after another. They were wearing work clothes and work shoes. When they saw Tanggua, they all greeted her warmly. When they saw Jinheng, someone who didn't know what was going on asked, Teacher Tang, are you finally willing to find a partner? Chapter 4776. Teacher Tang, your boyfriend is so handsome. Did you bring him back for the factory director to see? Teacher Tang has good taste. The boyfriend you found is tall and handsome. No wonder all the people who pursued Teacher Tang before didn't agree. Tanggua smiled and explained that this was a new teacher in the school. Jinheng was a little uncomfortable. He wasn't angry, but he was a little embarrassed. These people's gazes and teasing tone made him feel a little helpless. So he's a new teacher, said a girl. New teacher, I think very highly of you. You must work hard. Our Teacher Tang is still single and doesn't have a partner. If you work hard, you'll be Teacher Tang's partner. Hurry up and take over. Tanggua pushed the girl. If you don't go now, your salary will be deducted later. Hearing that her salary would be deducted, the girl quickly ran in and shouted, Teacher Tang, the new teacher is really good. You two look very compatible. Teacher Jin, don't mind it. The people here are used to joking. They don't mean any harm. Jinheng nodded. I know. Tanggua, is this your boyfriend? One of the people who still called Tanggua by her name was Yao Xianxian. She felt that she was too distant to call Tanggua Teacher Tang, because she was her friend. Yao Xianxian also worked in this factory. Because she was diligent, serious, and hardworking, she was already a small leader in the factory. She was also in charge of dozens of people. It was worth mentioning that Yao Xianxian was already married. The person she married was the one in Tanggua's memory. He was a little lame. At that time, this place hadn't developed yet. Chen Yufin opened a shop in the town. Yao Xianxian was of age. The Yao couple's youngest son also had to find a partner in 2 years. Therefore, they quickly found a partner for Yao Xianxian. Of course, the betrothal gift was also very high. The betrothal gift was too high. Many people couldn't afford it and were unwilling. However, someone in the neighboring village took out twice the betrothal gift that the Yao family was satisfied with. However, the other party had a condition. They could take twice the betrothal gift, but in the future, other than the usual filial piety, they couldn't make excessive requests. This condition was agreed by Yao Xianxian and the Yao family. Yao Xianxian had always known that her marriage was in the hands of her parents. When she heard that she was going to marry a cripple, she felt sad at first. Especially the other party's conditions. Since the Yao clan had agreed, she naturally had no choice but to agree. This was like selling her away. Yao Xianxian did not have any close friends. Tang Guo was one of them. After this matter was settled, Yao Xianxian ran to Tang Guo's house and cried beside her. There wasn't much information about Yao Xianxian in her memory. Tang Guo only knew that Yao Xianxian had indeed married a lame man and seemed to have led a good life after that. After hearing Yao Xuanchuan's complaints, Tang Guo decided to help Yao Xianxian take a look at that person's situation. If Yao Xianxian really wasn't satisfied and it was a fire pit, she definitely couldn't stand by and do nothing. In the end, the results of the investigation surprised her. This man wasn't ugly, nor was he handsome, but he was very tall and masculine. Being lame was indeed a huge shortcoming. In the eyes of many people, it was almost equivalent to being disabled. However, it wasn't an accident that he was lame. He was injured during a mission. He had just retired from the army 2 years ago and returned home. His parents had passed away very early. He was the only one in his family now. Many people were unwilling to marry him. Firstly, he had no parents. Secondly, he was lame. Thirdly, they all thought that he was very poor. Chapter 4777. In fact, this man wasn't poor. He didn't want to marry Yao Xianxian on a whim. He had his eyes on her for a long time. When he heard that the Yao family wanted to arrange a marriage for Yao Xianxian, he knew the Yao family very well. That was why he took the opportunity to ask for a matchmaker and proposed such conditions. If Yao Xianxian wanted to live a good life after marriage, she couldn't have too much involvement with her family. He didn't think it was a problem to pay respects to her during festivals, but he wasn't willing to let Yao Xianxian become a sister-supporting demon. He had to admit that his fierce appearance had indeed intimidated the Yao couple. The Yao couple was very tempted by the double betrothal gift. Not only did they agree, they even signed an agreement. Although this agreement was useless, it had the signatures of both village chiefs. If the Yao couple were to make a scene, they would be the ones to lose face. This man's behavior was to be a bad person. His purpose was to let Yao Xianxian have less trouble in the future and be able to live her own life behind closed doors. Everything was to pave the way for Yao Xianxian. Tang Guo only knew about it when she brought her second brother, Tang Shi, to see this man. Later, with the other party's consent, she secretly told Yao Xianxian about it. Yao Xianxian finally understood and said that she should have seen that person before. That person often went to the shade of the tree where she worked to rest. She didn't think that he was here to see her at all. Yao Xianxian wasn't someone who didn't know what was good for her. She also knew what her parents were like. After knowing the inside story, she stopped making a scene and even looked forward to it. After marriage, Yao Xianxian became Xiao Lei's little wife. She looked obedient outside, but others were afraid of Xiao Lei. They always felt that he would beat his wife. He really looked a little fierce. The Yao family didn't dare to provoke him at all, let alone ask about money. At home, Yao Xianxian lived a sweet life that many people didn't know about. Another thing worth mentioning was that Xiao Lei had invested most of his savings into Tang Shi's fish pond and paid off some of the money he had borrowed. He became the second largest shareholder of Tang Shi's fish pond. Now that the fish pond was rich, many people regretted it too late. The current Tang Shi was not short of money. These thoughts only lasted for a moment in Tang Guo's mind. She came back to her senses and said, "This is the school's new teacher, Jean Heng, Teacher Jean." Teacher Jean is an all-round teacher who graduated from a famous school. He knows all the subjects. Jean Heng was still a little embarrassed to be introduced like this. "So you're a new teacher?" Yao Xianxian sized up Jean Heng. "Teacher Jean, do you have a girlfriend?" Jean Heng did not understand and shook his head. "I don't have a partner." "What do you think of our Tang Guo?" Yao Xianxian was very serious. Tang Guo is the most beautiful girl in the few villages around here. Most of the girls her age are already married, except for Tang Guo. "Teacher Jean, you see that our village is developing very well. Do you want to consider marrying into a family? Beautiful girls like Tang Guo are hard to find even in the city. Last time, Brother Lei took me around the city. Those girls can't compare to Tang Guo. Teacher Jean, you can't miss this opportunity. Otherwise, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." "Jean Heng, don't tease Teacher Jean." Tang Guo pushed Yao Xianxian in. "Hurry up and go to work. See if your people are slacking off. Discipline them well. They're already married, but they're still so gossipy." "I'm not gossiping. I'm serious. Looking at the countless villages around here, no one is worthy of you. This Teacher Jean is." Yao Xuanxuan's face was serious. "Tang Guo, seize the opportunity. Put your label on him first so that others won't have any ideas." Chapter 4778. Who taught you these weird things? Tang Guo was speechless. Ever since Yao Xianxian and Xiao Lei got married, Xiao Lei had secretly taught her some weird things. Now, she was getting smarter and smarter, and even a little evil. But looking at Yao Xuanxuan's skin that was obviously 2 degrees whiter, and her pair of small hands that were gradually becoming tender, she knew how happy she was after marriage. In her memory, Yao Wenwen always complained in the family about how Yao Xianxian could be so happy after marrying a cripple. She thought that Yao Wenwen didn't know how happy she was. Yao Xianxian still wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by Tang Guo. Tang Guo pressed her hand on the lunchbox in Yao Xuanxuan's hands. "If you don't go in, I'll snatch this from you. This is made by your husband, right? I've already asked about the taste. It must be fried fish for you to eat as a snack. I'll snatch it and feed it to Goldie at the door." Woof, woof, woof. Goldie at the door seemed to understand. It immediately stood up, wagged its tail and barked at Tang Guo. It was obviously very happy. Yao Xianxian saw it and quickly covered it. "I'll go in first." Tang Guo was so evil. She actually wanted to feed Goldie with the snacks made by her brother Lei. Tang Guo smiled as she watched Yao Wenwen run into the room. Goldie, on the other hand, was very disappointed. It laid its chin on the ground and looked at Tang Guo with a pair of pitiful eyes, as if it had been wronged. Jean Heng went over and touched Goldie. Goldie didn't resist, and it even enjoyed it. It was also because Jean Heng was walking with Tang Guo. If it were someone else, Goldie might not be so obedient. Goldie feels wronged. Jean Heng said. He took out a packet of biscuits from his pocket, tore open the package, and took out the biscuits. Goldie wagged its tail happily and bit the biscuit gently. After Jean Heng let go, it wolfed down the biscuits. Seeing this, Jinheng was overjoyed and gave all the biscuits to Goldie. Dogs are all intelligent, Jinheng said. If you want to give it food, you have to give it some, or it will be sad. Tanggua did not expect Jinheng to be so serious. Did Mr. Jin raise a dog before? Yes, he did. He died of old age a few years ago. No wonder you know so much about dogs. Tanggua also took out the bones from her bag. Jinheng looked at them and realized that he had misunderstood. He was a little annoyed. So Teacher Tang was already prepared. Of course, I picked this dog up halfway. Do you think I don't know it? In order to make Goldie more intelligent, she even gave it a pill. This dog's mind was very mature, no different from an adult's. Jinheng smiled embarrassedly. I apologize to Teacher Tang. If Teacher Jin really wants to apologize, then do me a favor. Jinheng did not expect Tanggua to be so blunt, but he still asked, what favor? I want to learn the skills of a student teacher, such as art and music, Tanggua said. When I learn them, I can also teach these courses. Jinheng thought that it was something important, but he did not expect Tanggua to be thinking about how to teach students. Learning these things was to reduce his burden, wasn't it? Suddenly, he had mixed feelings. No wonder the people here liked her so much. After interacting with her, his heart, which was as calm as stagnant water, seemed to become active. Of course, I brought the tools. Let's go back and learn. After returning to the family Tang, Tanggua moved the table and chairs to the yard. Jinheng took out the tools and began to teach Tanggua how to draw. Chapter 47-79. Tanggua learned from Jinheng for the whole afternoon. Jinheng kept praising her talent and told her to continue learning. When she finished, he was still a little unsatisfied. Perhaps it was because he had never met such a talented person before. The system watched from the side and silently complained in its heart. The host had put in a lot of effort to pretend to be a novice. Most people might not be able to reach this level. Jinheng, this silly boy, was deceived by its host. He was deceived and still laughed foolishly. It was definitely that guy. Chen Yufan and Tang Shi both knew that the new teacher would be arranged to stay at their house, but they did not expect the new teacher to be a young man like Jinheng. Jinheng was polite and courteous. The two of them still had a good impression of him. During the meal, Jinheng chatted with the family Tang and learned about the clothing factory and the fish pond. The clothing factory might be imitated by others, but the factory has my mother's exclusive technology and its current reputation. In addition to low-end and mid-end products, the factory also has high-end products that my mother is personally in charge of. As long as the quality and style are guaranteed, there will be no lack of orders. Tang Shi suddenly said so much, which made them a little confused. After the confusion, they realized that he might be talking about the fish pond next. Could it be that there was something wrong with the fish pond? Second brother, do you have any ideas? Tanggua asked. Tang Shi smiled and habitually patted Tanggua's head. Little sister knows me best. I do have some ideas. Since the contract for the fish pond, no one was optimistic. Now that the fish and prawns have been harvested, people have seen that the contract for the fish pond can also make a fortune. From the beginning, I knew that as long as the first year was successful, there would definitely be people imitating the contract for the fish pond. At that time, not to mention the nearby villages, the entire town, the county, and even the city will fight to imitate this. Raising fish and prawns is not a simple matter. Even if you raise them well, you will have to bear a certain amount of risk. Also, the current preservation method is not very good, and the goods cannot be sold too far away. This is not like my mother's clothing factory, which can be sold all over the country. Fish and prawns will die if left out for too long. Once they die, they are basically useless. So, what is second brother's idea? Tangshur said, I've already asked around. Many fish ponds have been contracted this year. Some people have even dug fish ponds and are ready to go all out. Based on the current situation, there was no problem with the sales. However, it will definitely be much more difficult than before, so I thought of another way. Raising fish and shrimps isn't as simple as putting the baby shrimps and shrimps inside. There's a lot of knowledge involved. Therefore, I plan to set up a fodder factory. Tangshur's idea was indeed very avant-garde, bold, and far-sighted. When other people didn't have a fish pond, he did. When everyone else was in charge of the fish pond, he was in charge of the feed factory. Perfect. In this feed factory, not only do I make fish and shrimp feed, but I also make chicken feed and pig feed. As long as I can make feed, I will make feed that everyone needs. Tangshur touched his chin and smiled happily. Feed is different from fish and shrimp. It's convenient to transport, won't spoil in a short time, and has a shelf life. Jean Heng listened from the side and was also surprised by Tangshur's words. This idea was indeed feasible. Second brother, you've said so much. Have you already made up your mind? Have you prepared the formula for the feed? I have my own formula for fish feed. Back then, I experimented with several fish ponds. Chapter 4780. As for the other feeds, we can do it step by step. Since that was the case, Tang Guo was not worried anymore. Tangshur said, when the fish and shrimp feed factory is on the right track, I will start to mix other types of feed. Tangshur was now very grateful that Tang Guo had dragged him to study every day. Otherwise, he would not have been able to do this so smoothly. Now, if he had anything he did not understand, he could go to the county's library to read. It was very convenient. I think we should invite 1 or 2 people who are good in this area, Tang Guo suggested. Second brother, it's still too slow to do it alone. Since you want to do it in the long term, the feed formula will definitely be constantly updated in the future. You need a professional team. The leader of this team must have professional knowledge. Tangshur scratched his head and said in agreement, that's true, but it's hard to find people. The ones I've met so far do not know as much as I do. Second brother Tang, if you don't mind, I can ask my classmates who have studied in this area. Jean Heng interrupted at this time. In fact, when he learned about this place, he had an impulse to share with all the people he knew that this was a good place. Even if it was really barren in the past, it was being changed by people. Tangshur asked, are there really people who specialize in this area? Yes, I know some classmates who have studied agriculture, breeding, and animal husbandry. They might be interested, Jean Heng said. Tangshur said, since they have studied in this area, shouldn't they stay in the big city to develop? Would they be willing to come to a small place like ours? There are many people who study this. Although the big city is good, there are only so many people who need a good environment. Some of my classmates still can't do what they like. Second brother Tang can provide them with enough environment and conditions for their research. I think they should consider it. Tangshur asked, what kind of environment do they need? Enough livestock breeds, and enough space for them to do research and experiments, Jean Heng said. This requires financial support. Tangshur looked at Tang Guo. Little sister, what do you think? I think it's possible, but we have to wait until the feed factory is on the right track before we have the funds to study these. Tangshur nodded. That's what I think too. If an expert can come up with good feed and good breeding methods, then every family in the nearby villages, or rather, in the entire county, will have the opportunity to embark on the path of breeding. Tang sure thought to himself, Mom owns a clothing factory. When the time comes, we can even buy fur from these farmers. Don't we have down jackets now? Let's get some duck feed first. Then we'll have a lot of duck feathers. There's also rabbit fur. I think it's not bad either. We can eat rabbits and use rabbit fur to make clothes. Tang Shi's murmur made Chin Yufan nod repeatedly. Yes, I went out for a walk before, and I found that the feathers of these poultry seem to be very popular. Jin Heng didn't know what to say when he saw Tang Shi and Chin Yufan discussing how to use the feathers of various poultry in the future. Teacher Jin, you can continue eating. Don't worry about them. Tang Gua said. My mom and second brother are like this. Now they often exchange their experiences. This way, they can improve more. Jin Heng expressed his understanding. I'll write a letter to my classmates later and tell them about the situation here. I'll go to the school tomorrow and mail the letter. Chapter 4781. Thank you, Teacher Jin. After dinner, Jin Heng went to write a letter. Tang Shi sat beside him on a stool and explained the situation in the village in detail. Jin Heng picked out the useful ones and wrote them down. The next morning, Tang Guo brought Jin Heng to visit the school. It was Sunday and there were no classes. The principal knew that Jin Heng was coming and was waiting for him. Tang Guo introduced Jin Heng to the principal. The principal welcomed him very much. As for the teaching method proposed by Jin Heng, it was also approved by the principal. The conditions of the village school were poor. The principal felt that he had picked up a treasure to have a teacher like Jin Heng. After meeting the principal, Tang Guo brought Jin Heng to send the letter. On Monday, the students heard that there was a new teacher. They would be able to meet the new teacher during the morning meeting. Also, because of the new teacher's arrival, there would be some adjustments to their curriculum. During the morning meeting, more than 300 students heard the bell and excitedly walked to the field where the national flag was to be raised. After they lined up in an orderly manner, they looked in front of them curiously. Sure enough, they saw a tall and handsome young man standing beside Teacher Tang. They whispered, "Is this the new teacher?" After the flag-raising ceremony, the principal introduced Jin Heng's identity. When the students knew that Jin Heng would be in charge of their art, music, and English, they were very excited. Art was drawing and music was singing. This was what the students understood. As for English, they had never been exposed to it before. They did not understand it very well. The principal only needed to explain to them that it was a foreign language. Jin Heng's image in the eyes of all the students suddenly rose. Especially the first class that the principal arranged for Jin Heng was a big class for more than 300 people. He wanted Jin Heng to teach how to draw. There was a very big blackboard in the school. After it was moved and set up, Jin Heng used chalk to draw some very simple things on the blackboard. They were things that the students would often see. The painting was so lifelike that all the students were convinced. Because all the students had the same foundation for art, music, and English, they would be divided into 2 classes. They didn't have that many teachers at the moment, so they could only do this for now. Over 300 students got to know Jin Heng through the art class. From Wednesday onwards, the students would attend classes according to the new timetable. Even though attending Jin Heng's class was very troublesome, the students were very willing. Every day, they would count when it was Jin Heng's class. Tang Guo was not idle either. Every day, she learned new things from Jin Heng. Her progress was lightning fast, which made Jin Heng very concerned. He sped up her classes a lot. In just a short month, Tang Guo had already shown the ability to help Jin Heng correct his homework. It was also because Jin Heng was teaching 3 subjects, and he was teaching all the students in the school. Naturally, there was a lot of homework. Tangwa saw that Jin Heng was correcting his homework every day. She couldn't bear it, so she helped him. With Tangwa's help, Jin Heng was indeed a lot more relaxed. Tang Shi had already approved the land to build the factory. As soon as it was approved, he hired people to build it. This movement could not be hidden from others. What was even more surprising was that Tang Shi actually contracted out all the fish ponds to other people in the same village. There were 2 people who had joined the group before. They didn't want to contract out the fish ponds, so Tang Shi gave them their share of the fish ponds according to the original proportion. Many people said that Tang Shi was stupid. It was too risky to put all your eggs in one basket. CLA was the second largest shareholder. After weighing the pros and cons, he decided to follow Tang Shi. However, Tang Shi arranged for him to raise ducks. Chapter 4782. Yes, it was to raise ducks. He and his mother had been eyeing that down jacket for a long time. They heard that it was light and warm, and was the best choice for winter clothes. Therefore, Tang Shi planned to open up the market so that people would raise ducks in the future. When CLA heard that he was going to raise ducks, he specially came to family Tang to ask for advice. He didn't think that Tang Shi was tricking him. He must have some plan. When he arrived at family Tang, everyone was there. CLA even brought Yao Xianxian along. After CLA asked his doubts, Tang Shi handed him a thick notebook. You can read. Go back and read it. Think about it carefully. This is the experience I got from visiting many families who raised ducks. When the time comes, I'll give you some manpower. You can raise ducks according to this. Raise ducks first. When the technique is mature, you can raise others. Tang Shi understood that the current situation was that someone had to take the lead. Otherwise, no one would be willing to do it. He had to do it first to make others feel that it was profitable. Then, others would rush to imitate it. CLA flipped through the dense words in the notebook. His eyes lit up, and the way he looked at Tang Shi changed. He didn't expect Tang Shi's handwriting to be so beautiful. It was the most beautiful handwriting he had ever seen. Tang Shi saw CLA's gaze and felt proud. His little sister had trained him to have such good handwriting every day. After practicing for a few years, his handwriting was beautiful even with his eyes closed. Yao Xianxian, on the other hand, was talking to Tangwa. She circled around Jin Heng and said, I recently learned a saying. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Who learned it from? Isn't there a TV installed in the factory? I saw it from inside, Yao Xianxian said. Tangwa said, I learned all kinds of weird things. How is it weird? It's obviously very correct. Now that teacher Jean is living in your house, if you don't enjoy the moonlight first, are you going to give it to someone else? Yao Xianxian thought of something and said proudly, but don't worry. As your good friend, I've already helped you beat away many of your love rivals. Recently, I've been telling everyone I meet that teacher Jean will definitely be a live-in son-in-law of your family. Those girls who originally had some thoughts, once they heard that it was you, they didn't think about anything else. Tangwa said faintly, you still call yourself a good friend, but you've ruined my innocence. Yao Xianxian knew that Tangwa was joking. Wouldn't it be fine as long as you announce your relationship? Don't hide it anymore. I can feel that you don't treat teacher Jean well. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so concerned about her. You can even tell. Of course, I'm not the only one who can see it. There are many people who can see it. Moreover, teacher Jean is also very concerned about you. A few days ago, she went to the county to play. Didn't she bring you a small gift? Who did you hear that from? I know the person who sold the small gift. Later, I saw the small gift in your hand. Yao Xianxian stared at Tang Guo's eyebrows. See, isn't it useful now? The color of this eyebrow pencil seems to suit you. Tang Guo, if you weren't interested in Teacher Jean, would you have accepted the gift? In the past few years, there have been so many people who have pursued you. Their gifts are not more valuable than this eyebrow pencil, but I've never seen you accept them even once. Tang Guo was convinced. Alright, you don't have to say anything more. Then when are you going to announce your relationship with Teacher Jean? We'll see. Recently, Jean Heng's attitude towards her had changed a lot. Every weekend, when he went to town or the county, he would bring her a small gift. It wasn't very expensive, but it was very thoughtful. It was also something that she just happened to need. Chapter 4783. Okay, I'll be waiting for your wedding. After talking about Jean Heng, Yao Xianxian thought of something else. Her face suddenly turned ugly. Oh right, I have something to tell you. What is it? Tang Guo was curious. It was rare to see Yao Xuanxuan's face turn ugly. Yao Xianxian said, my sister went back to my parents' place. The next day, she brought them to my house to look for me. She wanted to borrow money from you. She didn't dare to borrow money. She had this idea before, but she was scared off by my brother Lei. Brother Lei even threatened her and said that he had to inform the He family about her borrowing money. If the He family was really in trouble, they couldn't not help because they were sisters. Everyone knows that the He family doesn't lack money. My sister was shocked and said that she didn't want to borrow money. The Yao Xianxian now was no longer the silly Yao Xianxian who sold her off and helped her count the money. Yao Wenwen had caused a scene a few times before, so she knew what kind of person she was. Life was not easy now. She didn't want to be at odds with Xiao Lei because of Yao Wenwen's sweet words. She came to ask me to join her, Yao Xianxian said. She saw that Auntie Yufan's factory was making money, so she wanted to set up one herself. He Chi didn't want to suffer with her. He Chi was annoyed by her for the college entrance examination. He Chi was also annoyed by her. The previous clothing store almost went bankrupt. Luckily, the He sisters managed it and took the goods from Auntie Yufan's factory, so it was saved. Now, she wanted to set up one herself, but the He family didn't want to. I heard that the He sisters suggested to set up a few shops in other counties and cities. They were even talking to Auntie Yufan. They didn't want to suffer too much and thought that it was good to make money this way. But my sister was very jealous. She felt that she couldn't make much money this way, so she insisted on setting up a clothing factory. The He family didn't agree, so they could only ask me to join them. They even asked me to steal some of the technology from the factory. Yao Xianxian said hatefully, that's too shameless. Putting aside the fact that she had some shares in the factory, Tang Guo's family had helped her so much. It was impossible for her to do this. Speaking of this, Yao Xianxian called out to Chen Yufan, Auntie Yufan, you have to be careful. My sister won't be satisfied. She might try to rope in other people in the factory. Chen Yufan nodded seriously. I'll keep an eye on it. She recalled in her mind that the core members all had shares in the factory, so they wouldn't shoot themselves in the foot. However, some of the ordinary management and employees were indeed very active recently. Mom, you don't have to worry too much about this. Even if Yao Wenwen doesn't have this idea, other people in the nearby villages will have this idea. In the future, there would be more and more clothing factories, and it would be unstoppable. What Mom needs to do next is to prevent those people from using our factory's brand to advertise. Once there is a problem with their quality, it is likely to bring us trouble, Tang Guo reminded. From now on, Mom can prepare for this to prevent people from impersonating us. It will be troublesome. This has to be widely announced. There is only one factory in the country, and there won't be a second factory. Once there is an impersonator, there will be a reward for reporting it. If anyone uses our brand to sell things, sue them. After hearing Tang Guo's words, Chen Yufan started to find people to prepare for this the next day. Chapter 4784. Jin Heng gave Tang Guo another idea. He had a classmate who majored in law. This industry wasn't popular yet, so not everyone could make a living from it. Under Jin Heng's recommendation, this classmate came to apply for the job. It was worth mentioning that Chen Yufan had bought 2 floors in the county as her company's office. When this classmate came, it added some popularity to the company. When this classmate knew that Chen Yufan was worried, he gave a lot of suggestions, which made Chen Yufan feel relieved. In addition, among the classmates that Jin Heng had written letters to before, 2 of them had already agreed to come over after they finished their work. Besides, Yao Wenwen was very angry that she couldn't win over Yao Xianxian. She cursed Yao Xianxian a few hundred times in her heart. The Yao family was very tempted. Family Tang's factory was too attractive. They originally wanted to take over the fish pond, but there were too many people in this industry now, so they couldn't do it. Hearing Yao Wenwen's words, the Yao family decided to take out all their savings, including the money for Yao Jun's future wife. In addition, Yao Wenwen also roped in a few familiar people in the factory. They were all smart people, so she asked them to do it alone. Because Yao Wenwen said it so seriously, it was hard for people not to know what she was thinking. As for those who wanted to leave, Chen Yufan listened to Tang Guo's suggestion and let them go. Under Yao Wenwen's organization, these people took out all their savings and prepared to do something big. After Tang Guo knew about it, she just smiled and didn't stop them. She didn't think that Yao Wenwen's clothing factory could make clothes better than her mother's factory. Also, there were too many shareholders, and Yao Wenwen didn't have any management experience at all. In her opinion, she might lose everything in the end. Yao Wenwen first applied for the land to build the factory, which was approved very quickly. Because at this time, the government was very supportive. If anyone wanted to start a business, the government would fully support it. They would also help to promote it, hoping that one more factory could stimulate the local economy. Seeing that things were going so smoothly, Yao Wenwen felt a little smug. But she didn't stop. She immediately arranged for people to build the factory. If the factory was built quickly, it could be built in a few months. What she lacked now was equipment. In order to buy a machine to make clothes, she had to go to a faraway place to look at the goods. Since the He family refused to help her, she would go by herself. He Chi was a good-for-nothing. She had also seen through him. In her previous life, he was just a pile of mud that had been helped up by Jiang Qian. When Yao Wenwen was looking at the equipment, every time she was tired to the point of dizziness, she would think of the good-for-nothing He Chi at home, and her heart was filled with hatred. When she returned with the machine, He Chi was still as frivolous as ever. Even the He family ignored her. At that moment, Yao Wenwen regretted very much that she had chosen to marry He Chi, this useless thing. She remembered that she was about to set up a factory and become a rich woman. As for the He family, He Chi, and a little burden, weren't they burdens to her? The He family didn't pay a single cent. If she succeeded in the future, wouldn't she have to share half of her assets with them? The more she thought about it, the more indignant she felt. Why should she spend the money she earned on these heartless people? She wanted a divorce. She was a reborn person. Sooner or later, she would make a fortune. She just didn't understand it before. Now that she understood, the He family couldn't be a burden to her anymore. Yao Wenwen's solution was to ask the He family for money directly. She said that she didn't have enough money to set up a factory. They were all family, so she asked them to invest more or less. The He family had been tormented by Yao Wenwen all these years, so they weren't willing to invest money. If Yao Wenwen was more obedient and didn't cause so much trouble, wouldn't they give her some management rights of the factory? Unfortunately, she didn't know what was good for her and was arrogant. Of course, she knew that the He family wouldn't agree, so she went to look for He Chi. He Chi naturally didn't agree, so Yao Wenwen started to cry. She cried pitifully and scolded He Chi for being a bad debt and a jerk. In the end, she mentioned divorce. He Chi was also stunned. He didn't expect that Yao Wenwen would actually want a divorce. At that time, he actually heaved a sigh of relief. All these years, Yao Wenwen had been tormenting him terribly. This matter blew up. Everyone knew that He Chi and Yao Wenwen had a big fight and wanted a divorce. Chapter 4785. Under Yao Wenwen's insistence, the He family agreed to the divorce. The child belonged to He Chi. Yao Wenwen didn't want the child at all. She even took some of the money, which made the He family very angry. After so many years, Yao Wenwen only knew how to mess around. She even suggested the idea of opening a shop. If the He family didn't go to Chen Yufan's factory to get the goods, they might have lost all their money. Yao Wenwen took the money back to her parents' home and began to busy herself with the factory. She invested the money in her hands. It was just the beginning. There were still many places to spend money. Chen Yufan, a typical peasant woman, could open a factory. How could she, who was reborn, not do it? Yao Wenwen was very annoyed. If she had thought it through, she wouldn't have counted on He Chi. It would have been better for her to raise funds and open the factory from the beginning. However, she didn't think about it. If Chen Yufan's clothes were not fashionable and exquisite at the beginning, and if Tang Gua and Tang Shi didn't help to do market research, and if Jiang Qian didn't buy the machines for the factory and introduce customers to the factory, how could a factory develop so quickly? The most important thing to open a factory was to find a market. Yao Wenwen only thought that she could make money by opening a factory. She didn't know the twists and turns and the bitterness in it. Tang Guo understood that Yao Wenwen divorced because she was afraid that He Chi would share her money in the future. She should have found out that He Chi was not so easy to support. In fact, the He family was not hateful. Even if the He couple valued He Chi the most and even spoiled him a little, they didn't forget the other 3 daughters. Otherwise, they wouldn't have supported the daughters to open shops in the surrounding cities. As for He Chi, he was just an ordinary man with a lot of bad habits. He was a bit of a jerk, but he was really good to his son. Now, he sent the children to school every day. After the divorce, He Chi seemed to be much quieter. It was said that 2 days after the divorce, the He couple locked him in the room and scolded him. Tang Guo greeted the He family's children and said to He Chi, "The children are already so big. They can't run to town every day. In the future, when the children write about their fathers, do you want your son to write, 'My father is a loafer'?" He Chi was stunned. Now, he looked at Tang Guo with eyes full of respect. He didn't dare to have other thoughts. Teacher had changed the village too much. No one dared to have such bad thoughts. If they did, they would definitely be beaten by the villagers. Tang Guo didn't urge He Ping to go to class, leaving He Chi was in the classroom's door. He Chi stood to go to class. He Chi was to go to class. He Chi. He didn't leave. He stood outside the window of the classroom and looked at the children sitting in the classroom. He saw He Ping at first glance. Usually, Yao Wenwen didn't care much about He Ping. It was always the He family's old couple who took care of him. She didn't know if it was because she knew that He Chi was useless, but the old couple didn't spoil He Ping that much. He to go to town to go to go. To leave to go. Since he was a teenager, he liked to go to town. At that time, he didn't know how to worry because his parents doted on him very much and didn't want him to do anything. His other 3 sisters were a few years older than him. He was the one who was taken care of since he was young. So until now, he had never gone to the fields. He even took the family's money to go out and play. When he was in his teens and 20s, he had played with everything he could. However, after marrying Yao Wenwen, he didn't play as much as before. Firstly, Yao Wenwen kept a close eye on him. Secondly, he was afraid that his parents would play tricks on him. Lastly, he felt that it was boring. Chapter 4786. Even though Yao Wenwen often pressured him, he had never thought of getting a divorce because he was living quite well. If he got a divorce, his parents would probably worry about his second marriage. How troublesome would that be? Anyway, he didn't lack food and drink. It was quite good to live like this for the rest of his life. Even after the divorce, he was still scolded by his parents. They didn't give him money casually. Even if he went to the shop to look for his 3 sisters, he couldn't get any. This made him very depressed. He suddenly felt that the world was different. He still liked his son. After Yao Wenwen left, the family was busy looking after the shop and farming. The task of sending his son to school fell on him. Tanggu's words just now really messed up his mind. He knew that elementary school students would write essays about their families. He heard his good friends say this before. His good friends were all married and had children. In fact, they didn't go out to play often. Most of the time, he took the money out to eat, drink, and play cards. At that time, he thought that his friends had changed their minds. He thought of his son writing an essay about him having a loafer father in the future. It was indeed a little scary. He heard the sound of reading in the classroom. Looking at his son's serious face, he wiped his face hard. He turned and left. In his mind, he thought that he didn't want to be the loafer father in his son's book. But he was a loafer. His family didn't lack anything. His family was well off, so he didn't have the heart to work hard. So, what could he do to prevent himself from appearing in his son's notebook as a loafer? Go farming. He shook his head fiercely. He didn't know how to farm. He didn't want to be in the sun or rain. It was too tiring. Look after the shop. He shook his head again. He couldn't resist those who wanted to bargain. Last time, there was an auntie who bargained. He sold 10 pieces at a loss and was chased out by his parents. He wandered to the shop in town. The shop in town was guarded by his mother. He walked in and found that there were many customers in the shop. Mother, he was smiling as she introduced the styles of the clothes to the customers. He found a stool and sat down. He watched with his own eyes as his mother made the customers happy in a short while. Everyone who came in bought the clothes. After the guests left, no one came for a long time. He felt that something was wrong, but he quickly remembered that his mother's attitude towards him was not right. If it was in the past, mother, he would definitely greet him with a smile and ask him if he was thirsty, if he was tired, if he needed money to buy food, and so on. He felt a little aggrieved that he had been ignored for so long. He finally perked up when he heard Mother He's voice. He quickly stood up and walked over. Mom, I've already sent Ping to school. I know. If he can't even do something like this, wouldn't he be a piece of trash? Chi's mother glanced outside and saw that there were no customers. She grabbed Chi's arm and said, Chi, go out. Don't come to the shop in the future. If you come, there won't be any business. Chi? Hurry up and go out. You don't know how to do things and can't help. You only know how to eat ready-made food every day. Now, you're affecting the shop's business. You're already an adult, but you still don't know how to behave. He couldn't believe that this was his mother. When did his mother's attitude towards him become strange? He couldn't remember. After He was chased out, he stood not far away, feeling very aggrieved. Chapter 4787. What made him even more frustrated was that within 2 minutes of him coming out, a large group of customers really went to the shop. They were the kind that only came to buy clothes. He rubbed his hair hard. He felt that this matter was very strange. Was he being targeted? He felt that it was boring to stay in the town, so he ate a bun and walked back to the village. He didn't expect to meet Yao Wenwen on the way. Seeing that there were many people following Yao Wenwen and that they were very enthusiastic about her, He felt that something was wrong today. In particular, Yao Wenwen's disdainful gaze made his heart ache. He went to the field again to visit his father. He even brought his father's favorite tea. He didn't expect that his father's attitude towards him was not as good as before. He just said that he should be sensible. His 3 sisters were busy, and he hadn't seen them for a long time. Suddenly, He felt that he had been abandoned. He sat on the edge of the field in a daze and looked at the thriving crops in the field. He, what are you doing here? Xiao Lei drove a large group of ducks past. He wanted to drive all the ducks into the field. The ears of rice had not been extracted yet, so it was not a problem to put the ducks into play. Tang Shi asked him to raise a group of ducks first to gain some experience and then open the market. When the technology was mature, they would raise a group of ducks and be the first to eat crabs. In addition, when the fish feed was on the right track, they would have to study the feed for chickens and ducks. When people saw that it was profitable, they would definitely follow suit and raise ducks. Then, their feed factory's business would become better. He saw that it was Xiao Lei and felt a little strange. Aren't you working on the fish pond? Why are you raising ducks again? Brother Shi said that it would be good to do this, so he asked me to raise a group of ducks first, Xiao Lei said. Didn't you go to the town to play? He was a famous loafer in the nearby village. Everyone knew that he had recently divorced Yao Wenwen. At this time, there were almost no divorcees in the village. I don't want to play anymore, He said with some distress. Do you think I'm a good-for-nothing? Xiao Lei was silent. When a good-for-nothing asked him if he was a good-for-nothing, how should he answer? He was not only a good-for-nothing, but also a bastard. He was an ignorant and incompetent person who did nothing and was too lazy to die. He, you'll be 30 in a few years. Xiao Lei said, look at the people in the village at this age. Who doesn't have anything to do? Are you planning to stay like this for the rest of your life? He smiled bitterly. It seems that I'm a good-for-nothing. Everyone despises me. Xiao Lei laughed in his heart. You know that everyone despises you. If it was in the past, after my divorce, my mother would definitely be very anxious to arrange a marriage for me. It's been so long, but she hasn't done anything. Xiao Lei was speechless. You've accomplished nothing and you still want a wife. Why didn't you treat her better in the past? Although he didn't like Yao Wenwen, He was a jerk. He scratched his head. In the beginning, she wanted me to take the college entrance examination. Later, she wanted me to open a shop and almost lost my pants. A while ago, she wanted me to set up a factory. I don't understand these things at all and have no clue. Besides, building a factory so close to Aunt Yufen's factory wasn't a good idea, was it? Isn't this something to offend people? Besides, the few shops in our family relied on the clothes from Aunt Yufen's factory to survive. Otherwise, Yao Wenwen would definitely make us lose a lot of money. He Chi's words made Xiao Lei think more highly of him. No matter how jerk a person was, he still had one or two good points. I'm not asking my mother to find a wife for me. I don't have such plans at the moment. I just feel that my mother doesn't value me. I'm not as important as the clothes in her shop. He Chi said this with a hint of grievance. Chapter 4788. Because of Yao Wenwen, He Chi was traumatized. Now, he was really afraid that he would find another wife who would torment him like Yao Wenwen. Xiao Lei listened and said, "Haven't you thought of finding something to do? You'll be 30 in a few years. If you don't find something to do, you'll be useless. You're a man, but you still have to be supported by 3 sisters and a pair of old parents. Aren't you ashamed?" He Chi's face turned red. His lips moved, but he didn't know what to say because Xiao Lei was telling the truth. You can't just talk about it. Do you think you can just sit there and think about it? That won't do. If you want to do something, you have to do it. Xiao Lei sighed. What can I do? Brother Shi told me that if you want to make money, make a fortune, and do something, you have to study the market. Go outside and take a look. Maybe you'll understand. Earning other people's money is nothing more than eating, wearing, living, and having fun. Find something you're good at or like and work hard. No matter what, you'll be able to achieve something. What are you good at? Xiao Lei asked. He Chi, I'm good at eating, drinking, and having fun. Xiao Lei was speechless. Indeed, this guy was best at this. Then what do you like? He Chi, I like eating, drinking, and having fun. Xiao Lei had a headache. Maybe you can go outside and take a look. If you're really determined and can put down your pride, bring something to the family tang to ask Brother Shi for advice. Brother Shi is a very good person. He's at a high level and will do great things. He won't care about short-term benefits. You see, not everyone in the village works for the family tang. If someone wants to develop on their own, Brother Shi will not be stingy with sharing his experience. If you have a better attitude and are more serious, Brother Shi won't mind. The main thing is that you have to think about what you want to do. Think it through before you go. Okay, I'm leaving. He Chi squatted beside the tree root and fell into deep thought. On the other side of the Tangua, the piano that the principal applied for the village had arrived. On the day it arrived, Jean Hing gave the students a piano lesson. Beautiful notes drifted out, making the children extremely happy. Even the principal and a few teachers in the school had gratified smiles on their faces. My mother has already agreed to donate some money to the school to renovate it. In addition to the school building, a teacher's dormitory would also be built. When the conditions of the school are better and we develop this place, I believe that there will be teachers willing to transfer over. Tangua said, my second brother has a new target on his side, so he can't help much for now. But when his side stabilizes, he can help a little. My brother and sister-in-law are going to donate extra books to the school, and the rest will be used to build the school. Tangua's words made the few teachers in the school tear up. The old principal really couldn't hold back his tears. He kept wiping them, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't wipe them clean. Even Jean Heng's eyes were slightly red. After staying here for a few months, he finally fully understood how difficult it had been to come here. Chen Yufan donated money, Tang Yu and Jiang Qian also donated money. The donation of books was quickly publicized. In less than a month, this matter was spread far and wide. On this day, just after Tangua's class, Jean Heng came to the classroom door. The principal called us for a meeting. It seems that there's something important. Currently, the land for the school had been marked out, and the construction site was on the other side. Although it was a little noisy, the children didn't feel affected. Instead, they were looking forward to the appearance of the new school. Tanghua and Jean Heng came to the office. When the principal saw that everyone was here, he said excitedly, "I've received a lot of donations recently from the students who left here before. Some of them are more, some are less, but they're all for the village. So, I plan to engrave all the names of these donors on a stone tablet." Of course, Tanghua didn't have any objections. The principal said, "We'll have new teachers soon. When the time comes, all of our teachers' tasks will be reduced a lot." This news showed that the school was really developing in a good direction. The village was under construction, and the books had been sent to the school. Chapter 4789. Currently, there was no place to store them, but the students could borrow books to read every day, and they all cherished them very much. Tang Shi's feed factory was set up. The first batch of feed was just produced, and it was bought by the people who raised fish and shrimp in the nearby village. Soon, the reputation of the feed factory spread. Because the fish and shrimp that Tang Shi raised before were big and the meat was firm, people believed in the feed in his factory. When the fish and shrimp feed entered a stable production, he began to arrange for people to study the poultry feed and pig feed. Chen Yufan's factory was also expanded, but it was not a large-scale expansion. No matter if it was a mass product or a premium product, in Chen Yufan's opinion, she had to maintain the reputation of her own factory. Gradually, Chen Yufan's factory had its own characteristics. Not only did it have a factory, but it also had a company brand. Moreover, it only produced its own brand, which completely spread the word of this brand. Yao Wenwen's factory was also built, and it was currently in production. At first, Yao Wenwen wanted to use a brand similar to Chen Yufan's clothing brand, but later she was told that Chen Yufan had registered all the similar brands. She used the reputation of Chen Yufan's clothing brand to promote. For example, when talking to customers, she said that they were from the same village, and the factories were next to each other. She said these specious words. There were indeed people who were fooled. There was nothing wrong with her words, and Chen Yufan could not do anything about it. Fortunately, she was already mentally prepared, so she was not very angry. However, some people who cooperated with Chen Yufan would call Chen Yufan to ask about the factory. Naturally, Chen Yufan would tell them the truth. The two factories had nothing to do with each other. The machinery and equipment were different, the technology was different, and the products were different. Of course, the prices were different, and the customers were free to choose whatever they wanted. Businessmen pursued profits. If Yao Wenwen's products were cheap and good, it was normal that they would be popular. Yao Wenwen personally supervised the production of the first batch of products. Whether it was the style or the quality, they were all top-notch, and the price was very low. Many businessmen were willing to buy from her. It was unavoidable for her to use her reputation. Chen Yufan felt uncomfortable, so Tanghua and Tang Shi comforted her. "Mom, I've checked. The cost of their first batch of products is too high. Maybe they can make a name for themselves, but if they continue to produce at such a cost and wholesale at such a low price, they will only lose money. If this continues, they will eventually lose everything," Tanghua said. Tang Shi said, "Little sister is right. They can only make 3 batches of good products at most. If they want to continue, they will either raise the price or reduce the cost." As for his mother's factory, the quality was stable, and those businessmen would come back. If they want to continue doing this for a long time, their methods are not advisable. Chen Yufan actually understood. "I just feel that she's using the excuse that we're from the same village to sell goods. It's too disgusting." After talking it through, Chen Yufan calmed down and scanned Tang Shi and Tanghua. Qian is pregnant. She wanted to take this opportunity to come back and have a look. I was afraid that she would be too busy, so I said that we would visit her during the new year. Jiang Qian and Tang Yu didn't want children because they were busy with their careers. Now that things had stabilized, they planned to have a child. Tang Shi and Tang Guo were happy to hear that, but it was too early for them to be happy. Your brother already has a child. Pete, why don't you find mom a wife? Chen Yufan asked. Without waiting for Tang Shi to answer, her gaze fell on Tang Guo's face. Don't laugh at your brother, Cherry. What about you? Where's the son-in-law you found for mom? A few years ago, everyone was saying that we were going to find a son-in-law. Where is he? Tang Shi laughed out loud. Motherfucker, it was very fair. However, he didn't expect that Tang Guo's words would push him to the edge. Tang Guo said, Don't worry, Mom. You'll have a son-in-law soon. Tang Shi, ? What about you, Pete? Of course, Chen Yufan knew who Tang Guo was talking about. Tang Shi hadn't been paying attention to these things recently, so he naturally didn't know that Tang Guo and Jin Heng were even closer. Jin Heng often gave her daughter good things. Don't think that she didn't know. It was also because she had observed Jin Heng's character that she didn't stop him. The main reason was that they were all living under the same roof, so there were no secrets at all. She was really relieved. Tang Shi. Chapter 4790. Tang Shi had been very depressed recently. It was a good thing that his career had been on the rise, but his mother seemed to have set her eyes on him. She said that he was not young anymore and should find a wife. Tang Shi thought that he still had a lot of things to settle, so he did not want to find a wife for the time being. Although Chen Yufan would not force him, she would talk about it from time to time. Especially his little sister, who actually had a target, which made him very unhappy. Just which stinking brat was it that dared to have thoughts about the little sister that he held in the palm of his hand? Tang Shi sat on the threshold, holding his chin and thinking. He was not very busy today, so he planned to walk around the school twice to see who that brat was. Tang Shi turned back, changed his clothes, and went out. As soon as he went out, he met someone coming in. This person was dressed pretentiously, carrying 2 bottles of wine and some fruits. He seemed to be here for family Tang. Brother Shi, are you going out? The person who came was He Chi Xiaolei had a heart-to-heart talk with him a few months ago. In recent months, he had been thinking about what he could do. He really listened to Xiaolei and went around. In the past, when he went out to play, he had never left the town. This time, he went out farther and went to a lot of places. It could be said that he had gained a lot of knowledge. Only then did he realize that the world had changed. Not only was his hometown different, but the outside world was also different. If he did not find something to do, he might really appear in his son's homework in the future as a loafer. Just thinking about it made him feel suffocated. He Chi. Tang Shi was very surprised. Why did this brat come over? He even had a flattering smile on his face. There must be something. Brother Shi, what's the matter? He Chi asked. Tang Shi, I just went out for a walk. You're here for, it's like this, Brother Shi. I want to talk to you about what I will do in the future. Brother Shi in our village knows best about these things, and I don't mind sharing my experience with everyone. This was the first time He Chi had asked someone for a favor, so he did not feel embarrassed. In the past few months, not only had he seen a lot, but he had also fully understood the rich families in the village. The other families basically did everything to make money for themselves. They would do whatever others did to make money. As for Tang Shi, he seemed to be playing a very big game of chess. He was slowly planning the development of this place. He always looked further than others. The more he understood, the more he admired Tang Shi. "So, I want to have a drink with you and have a chat," He said expectantly. "Tang Shi, did the sun rise from the west?" "Brother Shi, don't make fun of me. Everyone is improving, and I don't want to be a burden. My parents seem to be very disappointed in me. My 3 sisters won't give me money casually. Also, Ah Ping has been raised by my parents since he was young. I've never taken care of him. Now that I think about it, I've really been a bastard all these years." He blamed himself. "It's normal for Yao Wenwen to choose to divorce someone like me. It's annoying that she forced me, but she's right. I'm indeed a good-for-nothing. I've been relying on my parents and my 3 sisters since I was young. I don't want to become someone who relies on her son in the future. It seems that you've matured and become sensible." Tang Shi said that He was actually 3 years older than him. In the past, He would not have called him Brother Shi. Since He called him brother and said so many heartfelt words, he most likely really wanted to change. "Put the things at the door. Accompany me to do something first. We'll talk as we walk." Chapter 4791. When He heard this, he knew that Tang Shi had agreed, so he hurriedly did as he was told. He walked beside Tang Shi and told him about his experiences and thoughts in the past few months. Before they knew it, they had arrived at the village. The village was under construction, so it was noisy. He stopped talking about what had happened before. Instead, he asked, "Brother Shi, what are you doing here?" "I'm looking for someone." Tang Shi's face was gloomy as he said, "I'm looking for a brat. I was busy with the factory some time ago and didn't pay much attention to what was going on at home. When I went back, I fell asleep. I didn't expect that a brat would take advantage of the situation and have designs on my little sister. From what my little sister said, it seems that she's about to settle down. After I find him, I must beat him up." He shrank his neck. Yao Wenwen was right about one thing. The 2 Tang brothers in the family doted on their little sister very much. He suddenly realized that he knew a little about Tang Gua. "Brother Shi, don't you know about this?" Tang Shi stopped and looked at He. "You know. Not only me, but everyone in the village knows." He immediately understood that no one talked about this in front of Tang Shi. They were probably afraid that Tang Shi would beat them up. Everyone knew that Tang Shi doted on his little sister very much. No one dared to talk about it in front of him. Tang Shi's expression became even worse. "What do you all know?" "Everyone knows a little about Teacher Tang's boyfriend," He said weakly. "You found that person. Don't you know him? You live under the same roof, but you didn't notice. Teacher Tang goes to the county town with him every weekend to play in the city. Don't you know this?" Tang Shi was stunned. He was busy with the factory. How could he know that someone would do this? Wait, living under the same roof? Wasn't that? Tang Shi's expression was very interesting. He stood there and thought for a long time. "Let's go in and have a look." Recently, the school had transferred a few young teachers over. Finally, the few remaining teachers could take a breather and not be so busy. Tang Shi went straight to the teacher's office. Coincidentally, he saw Jin Hing teaching Tang Gua how to draw. Seeing the dazzling scene, Tang Shi felt smoke coming out of his head. As expected, it was this brat. His little sister had invited a wolf into the house. He didn't dare to laugh and stood aside. It was the first time he had come to the teacher's office. He couldn't help but be in awe. He just stood at the door and didn't go in. Perhaps because Tang Shi's gaze was too scary, it attracted the attention of Tang Gua and Jin Heng. When Tang Gua saw that it was Tang Shi, she greeted him with a smile. "Second brother, how did a busy man like you have time to come? Are you here to donate money to the school? However, Jin Heng could feel the hostility coming from Tang Shi. He pondered silently. He should not have offended second brother Tang. He was usually amiable. Why did his gaze look like it was spitting fire? Tang Shi walked over. What are you doing? He tried his best to soften his tone. Didn't you say that you were very busy? Why are you still in the office? I used to be busy, but I'm not so busy now. I'm just developing a hobby. Jin Heng is the only teacher in the school who can teach art. If I learn more, I can also teach students. Tang Shi looked at the drawing on the paper and was speechless. It was indeed very beautiful. She was indeed Tang Shi's little sister. However, he still didn't like Jin Heng. This brat was pretending to be a good person, but he actually stole his little sister. He knew that this brat came from a big city and must be from a good family. He had a good eye. When he was gathering funds, this brat would always invest a large sum of money. He didn't know how much money he had. He was too calculative. Chapter 4792. If his sister left with this brat, would she suffer? Would she leave her hometown and be bullied? It wasn't that Tang Shi hadn't thought of marrying into her family, but would a brat from such a poor family want to marry into a village? The more he thought about it, the angrier Tang Shi became. Hateful. This brat was too hateful. Seeing that Tang Shi's eyes were about to burst into flames, Tang Guo tugged at his arm. Second brother, who made you angry? A perfect copy of the old version of the book-chasing artifact, source-changing artifact, was playing. Guogua, go out for a while. I have something to discuss with Jin Heng. Tang Shi gritted his teeth as he spoke, wishing he could explode on the spot. Second brother, be gentle. Don't break it. Tang Guo seemed to have thought of something. She stood up and walked out, leaving behind a sentence and closing the door behind her. Tang Shi. He hadn't even said he was going to hit her. Jin Heng. Wasn't he going to stop her? System, ha 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 ha, what a pitiful couple. After Tang Guo said that, Tang Shi calmed down. He quickly understood that Tang Guo was just joking. She knew that he wouldn't really hit her. This girl really knew how to read his mind. I heard that you've been sending all kinds of things to my sister recently. Every weekend, you'll take her out to play. Tang Shi nagged. I only have one sister. You should know how important she is to me. Jin Heng, I know. That's good. I can't tolerate her being wronged. Jin Heng, I don't dare to be wronged. My sister likes you. I can't do anything to force you to break up, but... Tang Shi gritted his teeth. But you have to think about the consequences. My family's daughter won't marry outside. We'll only take in a son-in-law. Jin Heng thought it was something else, but it turned out to be this. He said seriously, I can marry into your family. If you want to kidnap my sister. Wait, you want to marry into her family? Tang Shi was stunned. This brat actually wanted to marry into the village. Did he hurt his head? Second brother, actually, I'm not your second brother. Don't call me that. Okay, second brother Tang, I can marry into your family. I don't plan on taking Xiaogui anywhere. Jin Heng said, before I came, I took care of all the trivial matters at home and sold off all the family assets. Most of the money I have is invested here. Tang Shi was silent. You sold all your family assets? Jin Heng, yeah. Your family, Jin Heng, my family passed away a long time ago. They died in that era, and the family property was returned later. Even if it was returned, it wouldn't be all of it, only less than half of it. It was because many things were already unclear, not recorded, and even damaged. This time, Tang sure understood. Suddenly, he felt that Jin Heng was a little pitiful. He was so pitiful that he had probably been pranked by someone. Thinking about the madness of those years, he still had lingering fears. Fortunately, his days were better now. You really like my little sister? Jin Heng, yes. Then you'll listen to whatever my little sister says. Yes. Tang sure was satisfied. Okay then, I won't object to you marrying into her family. You're living under her roof. If you dare to have any thoughts and bully my little sister, I'll call the people in the factory to come back and beat you up. I'll tie you to the tree at the entrance of the village and let the whole village see you get beaten up. Second brother can supervise at any time. You haven't done anything yet. Don't call me second brother. Tang sure was still very unhappy. Okay, second brother. Tang sure. If his little sister didn't like him, he would have called people to tie Jin Heng up and beat him up. Chapter 4793. The door opened. Jin Heng was not beaten up. Tang sure saw Tanggua smiling at the door. He reached out and tapped her forehead. You're so smart. You know that I won't beat people up. Love me, love my dog. I won't do that. Tanggua said. Her second brother was not an unreasonable person. Putting everything else aside, Jin Heng was educated, had good taste, and was very handsome. In the whole town, there was no other person like him. Tang sure knew that. Tang sure noticed that Tanggua's necklace must have been bought by Jin Heng. His little sister usually did not like to wear those things. There was also the exquisite watch on her wrist. It was not cheap. He looked back at Jin Heng's wrist again. There was a bigger watch with the same characters on it. Suddenly, he had a heart attack. There were so many details, but he did not notice. I'm leaving. Since your relationship has been confirmed, arrange a formal dinner and discuss the marriage. Okay, second brother, Jin Heng said, all the money I invested in you will go under Xiaoguo's name. Tang sure felt much better this time. This was the attitude he wanted. He did not lack family tang. He waved his hand. Let's talk about it later. I'm leaving. He Chi silently glanced at the couple standing together. He greeted them and asked about He Ping's situation. This was the first time he had mustered up the courage to ask the teacher about his son's situation in school. Tanggua said, He Ping's grades are very good. He is the first in class. However, he is still a little different from the other students. He is not as active and rarely goes out to play. He is quieter than the other students. This should be related to the environment he grew up in. If you have time, spend more time with He Ping. Take him out to play on weekends to improve your relationship. He is more mature than the other students. Most of the male students in school are more mischievous. He Ping, a classmate, accidentally fell down, but he wouldn't cry. He would only silently get up. I don't know what kind of environment made him forget to cry out in pain at such a young age. Tanggua's words were like a knife, cutting He Chi's heart again and again. His eyes were red. He forcefully wiped his eyes, feeling that he was too much of a bastard. After asking about He Ping, He Chi left with Tang sure. On the way, Tang sure said, there's still time. Yes. He Chi nodded heavily. Tang sure looked at him and thought that He Chi was really going to walk the right path. What do you want to do? Tang sure asked. He Chi, I like eating, drinking, and playing. I originally planned to open a tea house. But at this time, most of them were busy earning money and building a family business. There were probably not many who could come to this place to play. Since I can't play, I can only make a fuss about food and things. It's not easy to start a restaurant. I've observed that the people nearby have just become rich and are not willing to spend so much money on food. This idea can be put aside for later. A few months ago, I went to a lot of places. Combined with what I saw, I came up with an idea. I couldn't quite make up my mind, so I came to you. Tell me about it. Tang Shi was very curious about what He-Chi could come up with. Brother Shi, we don't lack chicken, duck, fish, and so on. The locals buy these very cheaply, so opening this kind of shop is at most a break-even. I want to open a shop in town. I don't want to sell only one thing. I want to open a big grocery store. I want to sell something that doesn't exist in our town. It's rare and not too expensive. It's something that people want and can use. Tang Shi's eyes lit up. Go on. First of all, daily necessities. He-Chi said, this is something that every household lacks. It's a consumable. If my grocery store has this and other varieties, there won't be a shortage of customers. Tang Shi nodded. That's a good idea. If we only sell daily necessities, the profit will be too low. But it's a small profit but quick turnover. Daily necessities are only used to attract customers. When they come in and wander around and see other things, they might buy them out of curiosity. The things in the grocery store are cheap and cost-effective. There are also expensive, exquisite, and high-end things. We can use cheap things to attract people and let them gradually develop the habit of spending. In addition, if someone buys these things first and publicizes it, there will be a wave of free advertising. So in this regard, I'll need your help when the time comes. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 4794. He-Chi said, for example, I can make a card for the grocery store. With this card, I can go to the grocery store to buy things. Brother Shi and Aunt Yufin have countless employees under them. We can give this as a year-end reward. He-Chi's words surprised Tang Shi. This kid might have been a jerk in the past, but he had one idea after another. Go on. He-Chi saw that Tang Shi was serious and seemed to be very interested. He became much more confident. Then let me summarize what my grocery store sells. He-Chi said, daily necessities. I don't need to say much about the things included in daily necessities. They are things that every family often uses. Small biscuits, melon seeds, dried fruits, candy, and other snacks. Now that every family is rich and the children have pocket money, we have to do more in this area. In the past few months, I've gone to many places and found a place where these things are sold wholesale. I even left my contact information, so it's not a problem. Cosmetics used by girls. When the days are good, girls like to dress up. Face cream, lipstick, which girl doesn't want it? There's also perfume and toilet water. There are also accessories, both men and women. When they have spare money, everyone will definitely buy them. Pots, bowls, ladles, and basins are not a problem. Some small furniture and appliances can also be arranged. As long as it's something people need, they can find it in my grocery store. There's also meat, vegetables, and fruits. At first, I didn't plan to buy too many of these. After all, they'll spoil easily. Tang Shi said, your ideas are already very mature. It seems that you've improved a lot in the past few months. I just don't want to continue being a useless person, He-Chi said. I want to be a father that Ah Ping is proud of. Tang Shi asked, does your family support you? At first, they were against it. But in the end, they still felt sorry for me and gave me a sum of money. However, it's still far from my budget. Because other than opening a grocery store in town, I still want to open one in the county. If the market is good, I plan to open one in the city. In the county and the city. Livestock, poultry, and aquatic products are more important. What do you mean, Brother Sure? In the future, this place will rear all kinds of poultry and livestock. There's no need to find a supplier. Tang Sure nodded. That's right. I think so. Haven't you noticed? Are humans especially suited to raising these things? After hearing what you said just now, I feel that this place of ours, not only can it be used to breed poultry and livestock, but it can also be used to grow vegetables. Grow fruits. The fertilizers are already made. Tang Sure had another idea. What about the vegetable section of your grocery store? There was also a place to purchase goods. Once you've made some progress, there will definitely be people rushing to imitate you. When the time comes. I'm not afraid that these things won't sell. Yes, I heard that the people in the city love these fruits and vegetables the most, He-Chi said. So I have to hurry, in case someone has the same idea as me. Let's take over the market first. Tang Sure, come home with me for dinner. Let's discuss this properly. If it's suitable, I'll invest the remaining money. If I don't have enough, my mom has more. When He-Chi heard this, he felt as if a huge rock had been lifted from his heart. The smile on his face widened. He rubbed his hands. He did not expect to gain so much today. It was a happy thing. On the way home, the two of them bumped into Yao Wenwen again. Yao Wenwen was wearing a very fashionable coat, a pair of black high heels, and silk stockings. She was dressed very fashionably. Her hair was also permed into wavy curls and she was wearing bright lipstick. If he did not know her, he would have thought that she was a girl from the city. When He-Chi saw Yao Wenwen, he did not think much of it. He did not feel that Yao Wenwen's business was doing well. His mind was filled with what he should do next. When Yao Wenwen saw that He-Chi was still the same, she snorted in her heart. He was a pile of mud. She was really blind back then. However, it was quite good now. She had sold all her first batch of goods. Now, the merchant who ordered her goods had already ordered the fifth batch. When all the goods were collected, she would be able to recoup her capital. Peak. Chapter 4795. Yao Wenwen didn't want to pay attention to He-Chi. She didn't even want to say goodbye and pretended not to know him as she left. He-Chi thought of He-Ping and stopped Yao Wenwen. Do you want to go back and see Yao-Ping? Yao Wenwen pretended not to hear him. She quickened her pace and soon disappeared from He-Chi's sight. See that little burden? Forget it. It was too late for her to get rid of him now. It was all thanks to the He family that this child was accepted. Otherwise, he would be a burden wherever she went. Does Ping miss Mom? He-Chi was stunned by Tang Shure's question. I just feel that after being divorced for so long, she hasn't gone back to see Ping. How could a child not miss his mother? Tang Shure shook his head. Perhaps you should go back and ask for your son's opinion. As far as he knew, Yao Wenwen didn't care about He-Ping at all. She barely took care of him. At most, she listened to the He family's instructions every day and sent the child to school. He had met her a few times on the road, and the relationship between the mother and son was very distant. It should be said that Yao Wenwen's attitude was very bad. He-Ping was afraid of her. If it wasn't for the fact that it was easy to bump into people around, Yao Wenwen might have taken some extreme actions. He-Chi was deep in thought. He wasn't a stupid person. On the contrary, he was quite smart. When Tang Shi mentioned it, he understood something. That night, He-Chi stayed at the family Tang restaurant for dinner. Tang Guo was still a little surprised when she heard He-Chi and Tang Shi's discussion. He-Chi had actually built the prototype of a supermarket. Now she understood that He-Chi still had some potential. It was just that no one had been able to enlighten him in the past 20 years. Now that he might have experienced something, he suddenly realized it. Since He-Chi had already built the prototype of a supermarket, Tang Guo also added flowers to the brocade. She picked out some things to take note of when opening a supermarket. Tang Shi also took out a small notebook and wrote down all the useful things. He also gave He-Chi a small notebook. He looked at the scribbles on He-Chi's notebook and the corner of his mouth twitched. He-Chi, what the hell are you writing? He-Chi glanced at Tang Shi's neat and smooth handwriting and hurriedly covered the small notebook with his hand. Brother Shi, don't laugh. I'm not well educated. You also know that you didn't study much. Could these words even be seen? When you become a big boss in the future, are you going to use pinyin and homonyms to replace the words you can't write? If others saw this, wouldn't they laugh themselves to death? He had to practice more when he got back. At the very least, he had to learn how to write properly. Otherwise, you'll be at a disadvantage. He-Chi quickly nodded and noted this down. That day, after He-Chi went back home, she didn't go to bed immediately after taking a shower. Instead, she stayed beside He-Ping and watched him do his homework. He-Ping felt that it was very strange, but he couldn't control his father. For the next few days, He-Chi obviously paid more attention to He-Ping, especially when He-Ping was doing his homework. He-Chi was always there. He-Ping also felt that his father had changed. Not only did he accompany him to do his homework, but he also bought delicious food for him. In the end, he even suggested that he take him out to play on weekends. He-Ping felt as if he was dreaming. It wasn't until He-Chi asked him if he wanted to see Yao Wen that He-Ping couldn't help but say, "Dad, do you not want me anymore? Are you planning to send me away?" How could that be? He-Chi quickly denied it. He didn't quite understand why He-Ping would think this way. Seeing He-Ping's red eyes, he finally understood how much of a jerk he used to be. He-Chi repeatedly expressed that He-Ping was at ease. The father and son had a heart-to-heart talk. He-Ping understood that his father had really changed for the better. The things that he had told him were slowly coming true, and he was much more cheerful. Chapter 4796. After class, Tang Guo was marking homework in the classroom. She saw many students surrounding He-Ping. She had sharp ears and heard that He-Ping was distributing snacks to his classmates. He even proudly told her that his father had brought him to the city to buy these snacks. He also shared some small toys with his classmates. He also proudly said that his father had bought them. When she heard this, Tang Guo understood that He-Chi and his father had reconciled. He-Chi must have made some changes to He-Ping. Yao Wen aside, He-Ping was really likable. He was sensible and had good grades. Ever since he entered school, he had been easy to deal with. However, when she thought about it, such a sensible child must have experienced something bad. He-Chi accompanied He-Ping for a while before he started to get busy with opening a grocery store. He even gave his grocery store a name. Every family has it. When the family Tang people mentioned it, he registered the trademark and the similar trademarks. He did not know why he did this. Since it was the family Tang people who reminded him, there must be a reason. He would not be at a disadvantage if he followed them. It had to be said that with the help of the family Tang people, He-Chi avoided many detours. Tang Guo was also keeping an eye on He-Chi. Once there were any detours, she would remind him indirectly. She still hoped that He-Chi would make a fortune sooner. He made a fortune, which meant that their family would have more income. After all, her second brother and her mother had invested a lot of money. After Jin heard about this, he discussed with her and also invested a sum of money. In fact, Tang Shi would invest a sum of money in some of the entrepreneurs in the village. He would invest less in the average ones. For ideas like He-Chi's that he liked very much, he would invest more. Not many people in the village knew that He-Chi wanted to open a grocery store. He did not publicize it, and the family Tang people did not like to talk about it. The He family's words. They would not publicize it. After so many years, they knew what He-Chi was like. The two elders of the He family regretted it now. They had been too indulgent with He-Chi back then. However, they still could not bear to not help He-Chi. They took out a portion of the money and asked He-Chi to try it out. Succeed. They did not expect much. They only hoped that He-Chi would really do things seriously and not be a jerk like before. They did not dare to publicize that He-Chi was starting a business. If the villagers knew about it, they would be laughed at. He-Chi went to town every day. No one would suspect anything. What about Yao Wenwen? The second and third batches of goods had been sent to the customers. At the same time, they had also received the payment. However, Yao Wenwen was not very happy. Her face was a little ugly. Why did we lose so much? If things continued like this. Even if they collected the rest of the payment, they would still suffer a loss. There was no way to recoup. How could they not make a loss? At this rate, not to mention recouping his capital within a year. They were all happy to see it. But they did not know that the business was so good, but not only did they not make money, but they also lost money. Our wholesale price is too low, and the production cost is too high. It would be strange if we could recoup our cost. From the beginning, I thought that we should pay the same price as Chen Yufin. At least we won't lose money this way. That's right, that's right. Even if they choose Chen Yufin's factory, it's not absolute. Maybe they will like our style after seeing it. Chapter 4797. Yao Wenwen was annoyed when she heard the discussion. If the price is so high at the beginning, who will buy it? Do you think those merchants are fools? Isn't the low price to open up the market? After discussion, everyone agreed to reduce the cost of production by half. Everyone would go out more and attract more customers. It would be best if they could recoup the cost. In addition, Yao Wenwen had another idea. She would take out some of the produced clothes and put Chen Yufin's label on them. Although the labels were Chen Yufin's, they couldn't be exactly the same. Otherwise, it would be easy to get sued. She would just make it more similar. At first, everyone thought it was impossible. Later, when the cost was reduced in the second month, it was still far from being profitable. They agreed with Yao Wenwen's idea. As expected, the number of orders increased. 3 months later, the people in Yao Wenwen's factory laughed. They all praised Yao Wenwen for her cleverness. As long as they could make money, what was wrong with using similar labels? Chen Yufin couldn't care less. The system had been watching Yao Wenwen. It could be said that all her actions were under its observation. Tang Guo wasn't in a hurry. When Yao Wenwen wanted to use a similar tag, she designed a new tag for Chen Yufin. At first glance, one could tell that it was their brand. It was much more high-end, so it wouldn't be wrong. Therefore, after that batch of goods, the labels of the clothes in Chen Yufin's factory were all different. People who really bought clothes of this brand would know. Stores of this brand opened one after another. Chen Yufin did not arrange for people to open them. Instead, they invited people to join them. They provided the goods and let people pay to open the stores to buy goods from their factory. The price was not raised too high because Chen Yufin signed a special contract with them. The store could not sell fake goods. Of course, these were all proposed by Jiang Qian and Tang Guo. Another week later, Heqi's store was open for business. It was a very big grocery store. The loud sound of firecrackers attracted many people. There were people giving out flyers everywhere in the town. Tang Guo did not mention the flyers. Heqi thought of it himself. After many people saw it, especially when they heard that the store opened, they quickly rushed over, especially when they heard that they could buy things and give away things. Walking into the huge grocery store that was different from before, people were shocked. This place is so big. There are so many things. Not only are there a lot of them, but they are also very cheap. Oh my God, everything. Moreover, the prices are all marked out. It's just that there's no bargaining here. What does this mean? Oh, I understand now. This is a 7-day promotion. It will be sold at half price. After 7 days, it will return to its original price. Heqi felt a little relieved when he saw that there were people constantly buying things and paying the bill. He had put in some effort to set the price so that people would feel that there was a bargain to be had. Heqi's house was popular. Every day, there was an endless stream of guests. In just 7 days, many people had developed the habit of coming to the town for a stroll. Heqi saw that there were no problems here, so he went to the county town to work. There was another store that was about to open. Most of them were in county towns, where there were more people and more purchasing power. However, over here, the stores under Chen Yufin's brand were experiencing problems one after another. This was a mine that Yao Wenwen had planted. Now, many people were coming to cause trouble with the clothes. However, Tang Guo was well prepared. When Chen Yufin received the news, she sent a notice to the agents and taught them how to deal with it. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.